Good evening and salutations. Welcome to Tavern Talk. I am your host, Reverend Sergeant Tyler Randall. I go by both my titles just for pomp and circumstance. And today is a special episode because we have with us a guest. I know every time I have a guest, I just bring on another Marine, but that's cool. It's totally awesome. This is my good friend, and I'd like to thank my mentee, Tanner Ross Leamon.
You were the very first Marine I was directly under in our unit. When you took me to headquarters to check in and took my picture and made a meme out of me.
I didn't know that you were going to be shilling for an apology this early in the podcast, but I am sorry.
Not ashamed. It was hilarious.
And as always, we are in the tavern where we speak the truth and we drink. So cheers.
Cheers. And you were right. A uniform is not complete without a smile.
That's right. That's one of the that's like literally one of the second or third memes that I ever made correctly. So I will say that we are broadcasting live to YouTube and to Facebook concurrently. So if you guys want to comment, just go ahead and comment. We can see them. They'll pop up. We will answer them in turn as best we can. But Tanner sent me a message about, I don't know, man, what was it, a month ago?
Oh, originally, that had been 2 or 3 months ago.
Maybe 2 or 3 months ago, wanted to get on, and life goes. You forget. You go to work, and then you look at your messages and you go, "Hey, wait a second." Well, Tanner had brought up a book that I had never read. Which, it's not that I've read every book, but it was one that definitely has changed the outlook of my life. Why don't you go ahead and introduce it and kind of give some real quick broad strokes before we get into it?
Well, the book, or really the essay, was it's called The Leisure, The Basis of Culture by Joseph Pieper. And it's a book about leisure.
But what it
is and sorry.
What would you say Pieper's, in his estimation, what leisure is? Because I think that's going to be the one question. And I know that's like a dissertation, right? But if you could give a bullet point before we go into detail, what leisure is.
So Pieper's whole point is that leisure it's not when you get home from work and veg out in front of the TV and get some relaxation in so you can go to bed, wake up, and go to work again. It's not the time to recover. It's not the time off of work to work more afterwards. It's I don't say without giving it away right away. It's a lot deeper and more important than that. It's something you do for the sake of it, basically for the sake of its own sake.
Which is interesting because a lot of purported self-help ideologies will say, it's for the sake of this, for the sake of that. Oh, it's for you. It's self-care, self-care. And quite honestly, this is probably, I believe Joseph wrote it in what? Do you say Pieper? Because I was reading it as Piper.
It's Pieper, yeah. It's German.
Pieper?
It's Pieper.
But he wrote it in like post-war Germany in 1948, right? Or at least when he came up with the idea.
He gave a lecture in 47. I think it was published in 48.
There we go. And he comes to this. He comes to the German people. He's looking around and he's saying, basically, before we pick up the rubble and start stacking it on top of other rubble, maybe we should just take a minute and look inside, because it is kind of like looking inside, but very specifically. And also, there's different variations, levels, and if anything, I don't want to use the word spectrum because of how it's been fucking appropriated recently. But also, we curse in the tavern. I'm just throwing that out there. It's not for kids, but fuck them. Hey, go fuck yourself. But I honestly, I got to the point where I understood immediately. As soon as he said leisure, I was like, oh, you mean sloth? And it's like, actually, it's not sloth.
Well, maybe your definition of sloth was wrong in the first place, and he addressed
exactly.
That. Yeah.
So we come to what I've heard it pronounced both ways, Acadia or Achadia.
I say acedia.
acedia.
There's more
Holy
than two pronunciations.
So what is you're probably more eloquent than I. What would acedia be?
This is one of those things where I've heard it a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
This book gave me a better understanding of it. I can't say I completely understand it. It kind of boils down to a spiritual malaise.
Malaise.
Yeah, that's a good word. I just pulled that one out. It is. It's when you. It's ingratitude. It's a. It is. It's not living up and appreciating who you are as a human, as a person.
Okay, so who you are as a person. So it's not necessarily sloth like people would think of as almost akin to gluttony of
It's
just
not laziness. It's not
laziness. Yeah, it's not inaction. As a matter of fact, it can be action itself. It can be what Kant, who incorrectly stated, and the way he stated it was incorrect. I might say. I'm not saying I'm smarter than him, but I probably am. The idle hands of the devil's workshop, right? That's one of his big contributions to fucking philosophy. But it's what he means is what he should mean is, and he disagrees with this. It's being idle at work, being idle, actively idle. Does that make sense? I know it's a contradiction, but to be totally total work. Like I'm saying, the buzzwords are coming out. To be totally devoted to work, be totally I got to get that grind. I got to get this car. I got to get this house. I need to, I got to go to football Sunday with my friends. I got to cook out. I got to go to my kids' recital. None of that is work. And none of that is, and then going and sitting on the couch for fucking 20 hours on a Saturday is not leisure. It's being comfortable with yourself where you are, calm and quiet. And by the way, this is the part that nobody likes to hear. In order to, one, have the Greek to know thyself, and two, to know God, because only then can you know God. To know yourself, because you're made in His image. And I know, guys, this is going to be a religious heavy, because he was a Catholic scholar. Okay, Pieper was a Catholic scholar, but this is going to be pretty religion heavy. But if you're secular and you don't. And you don't want to subscribe to that stuff, that's totally cool. Just think of it as just like a grain of divinity, because the rest of it is all foundational, I think. What do you say to that?
So Pieper really goes heavy on what he saw in post-war Germany, which I think what he saw then has come to fruition now, is that they were working, but what were they working for? They wanted to rebuild Europe, but the Europe he saw that they were rebuilding was a Europe focused totally on work. And we could even see that in our lives now in America, where you go to school for 12 years, and you're told you need to study hard so you can go to college. Well, why should I go to college? So you can get a good job. You get a good job. You're like, why do I have a good job? So you can be, I guess,
successful,
an efficient economic agent.
I knew you were going to turn into that lane. That's perfect.
To the I think slanderous term that I want to use. And why do you do that? Well, so you can raise your 2.5 kids, and I'm kind of putting my own business in this.
No, that's fine.
To go to school, go to college, and become efficient economic agents. And to do that, what do? You go to work. And when you're not at work, what do? Well, you get ready to go to work.
Or you chill out from work.
Yeah. And
recharge the batteries, right?
Make the point in the book or in the essay where it's like, yeah, you get breaks from work, like at work, but those breaks are for the purpose of work.
Yeah, they support. So they are explicitly for the purpose of the work.
When I'm at work and I get my 15-minute break or my lunch break, it's so I can come back and keep working. And
Amazon is like the personification of total work.
Yes,
to hear the stories.
There's a lot of things that are this total work that he speaks about, but he's trying to. He doesn't really give a solution, but he's pointing this out so you recognize that your time off of work. You need to take time off of work, not just for work. You need leisure. You need time to
do something useless.
That's what he calls it. He calls it useless.
But once again, that's another term that on its face, we see it and we automatically have, it has a connotation.
Yeah, it sounds bad. And I should have told you about, so in the print version I've got, hold it up.
Oh, nice.
There's a second essay called The Philosophical Act. And when he says, when he's kind of making the point that leisure is useless and for its own sake, that becomes really clear in the Philosophical Act, where philosophy is for the sake of philosophy. You're not learning to do something, and that's
right
of the workaday world. I'm doing this all for work. You get that. So he makes the distinction between liberal arts and servile arts.
Yes, servile. There we go.
Servile arts are to accomplish something, and liberal arts are for their own sake. And so in the Philosophical Act and in leisure, it's there in leisure, but it's more explicit in this other essay, that you do philosophy for its own sake because
it's good.
It's good. And really, it is kind of the paradoxical point. He points this out in leisure. The paradoxical thing about it is leisure and philosophy are for their own sake, but they're also for worship.
Yeah.
And, if your leisure time or supposed leisure time is only to go back to work and work efficiently, then you could call that leisure, and then you're kind of accepting your work and the economy, or however you want to put it, as your God.
Then you want to talk about determinism, like we were talking about before. Mm-hmm. What's more determinist than that? And you have free will and free choice, right? As long as you're making choices within the system. And by the way, somebody who is pro-capitalism, I'm not a capitalist, but somebody who is pro-free market capitalism as an economic system, this is like a deadly blow to kind of conservatism, to wrangle itself back to God, basically. Yeah. Because the longer you stay away from it, the more you become and I know I'm doing a black and white or a red and blue thing when Piper is explicitly not that. It's not like yes and no. It's increments. But the longer you're a conservative and you're godless, the more you're a Democrat.
So you want to hear something really incendiary? It might throw us off completely, and we may
bring it.
So in America, when we say liberals, what do we mean?
Yeah, they mean progressive.
Yeah. And maybe historically and outside of America, when you say liberal, who do you mean?
The conservatives.
Well, what we would call conservatives, right?
Yeah, well, we in America.
And even, I hate to say it, because I haven't actually read like the original conservative thinkers, but the impression that I get is just conservatism has always been liberals, composed of liberals who drag their feet.
Yeah.
And not like explicitly, unless you're a neocon. They explicitly.
Fucking A. Like, honestly,
but it's kind of a, oh, well, no, stop. But then nobody stops. And a generation later.
And then they run up to the front like a road guard and they go, hey, stop. And then they just run past them and they go, shit. Okay, what?
Conservatives who say, well, slow down, stop, and they're ignored. And it's a cycle. And
I'm more of the conservative that when I say, see, that's another thing is like we can't even agree on terms. So you can't call yourself a liberal, you can't call yourself a conservative, because there's so many small tribes that are now fracturing, which I think is a good thing, because eventually you have to rally and solidify into a single movement or party. But libertarian's definitely not it. I'm going to say that outright, like 100%. LOL, libertarian for a reason. You're a fucking fence sitter, and it's because you're an atheist. Sorry, that's exactly what it is. But so when I take your point and I'm running with it. When I say I'm a conservative, I want to say for why, for what. When they say progress, I say for whom, and at what cost, and for what sake. Like, please explain those things to me, and then I'll say, okay, if you can articulate it in a freaking cogent way, I'll step in that direction with you.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't just say because progress must be made. It's like, what are we progressing towards? Exactly. And to jump back into leisure, servile, work for work's sake. This is Marx. Marx kind of. I'm not joking. I know it sounds terrible, but I kind of agree with.
I haven't thought this completely through, but I have a thought, not quite a theory, that Marx critiqued liberals, but that the progressivism in general, and in one of those directions, that's the fulfillment of liberalism. That's inevitably where maybe.
Oh, really?
Not that was the intent of like John Locke or Hume, but like just kind of the unintended consequences, maybe. Like its fulfillment is in progressivism.
So you're saying that bar none, pure servile work. Now, by servile work, because we're throwing around terms that we've already looked up and that we've already kind of been informed by the text.
Not servile. I was just kind of throwing out there that Marx, even though he critiqued liberalism, he's more in line with liberals than.
I will say, if I could maybe slightly put this together in a different perspective.
If you want to push back, do it, because it's been a thought. I haven't been able to think it through.
I think Marx, he hit the nail on the head as to problems. Mm-hmm. His solutions, however, go the direction of what you're saying. Is it only goes this way because he was unable. By the way, when I talk about Kant, I talk about Marx. They're freaking
problem was. He saw people as merely economic agents, and that's
exactly. Yeah, so on both sides, you hit the nail on the head there for sure.
Here's the ironic thing. I think Friedman was like what 60s? When was Hayek? Early 20th century.
Holy shit! Yeah, then late 19th, earliest 20th.
So until then, liberals weren't like this, but I think since Hayek, and I'm kind of showing my ass here since I haven't read them, but
me neither.
I've read quotes. I've read Sal at least.
Yeah, I know. We've see, that's the other thing is we can sit here and critique it, but being aware of the generality of one's theories or positions, I think that's good enough to make generalizations. But if we want to critique their work, which by the way, I'm not into critique
specific, but I think since what's turned into, I guess that I don't even know how we'd put it in today's terms, but the super free market, you kind of they have a sense of, I think this is even in is it Soul or Sal Thomas?
I always say Sowell.
Sowell, okay.
I split the diff. I split the diff on Sowell.
So even him, you kind of get the impression that the market will select the correct morality.
And, the invisible hand, right? That's what they say.
Well, I mean, I get it for commodities and trading. The invisible hand, I understand it. And I used to subscribe to, well, people are going to be generally good, and
Okay, Anne Frank.
The best ideas will win out on the market of ideas, right?
Yeah,
And,
except when. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm gonna say that turns man into
Merely
economic agent.
Exactly.
Marx, man is merely an economic agent.
His
Sorry,
idea was
that
he
was a big
saw
around
the
thing,
problem.
yeah.
He saw the problem. He wanted to buck against capitalism and the bourgeoisie so badly that he accidentally took their same position. He agreed with their premise.
Yeah.
Except the capitalists and the bourgeoisie, as he calls them, fucking asshole. They say no. Let the best idea reign. Except that almost has never been true, and there always has been gatekeepers. So for those of us that like in our intellectual infancy, we'll read Sowell and we'll read Friedman and we'll read Williams. And we'll go, oh, dude, this fucking capitalism, that's the shit right there.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Fucking fuck Marx, fuck him in the ass. But then as you get older, you start going, wait a second. These motherfuckers are basically rallying against this kind of evil determinism that when taken in either direction is you're fucked. There is something in the middle that this road that's never been paved, and libertarians say they know the way, but they don't fucking know. They're blind. So you get to when you were talking about servile work and liberal work, servile work is all
arts and liberal
art, not art and work. Excuse me, art. But like Marxism is 100% servile, right?
Well, think about it. Even in Soviet Russia, their art, their music, it was at the service of advancing communism.
Yeah, and look at
they didn't
the
have,
others. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted. I apologize.
They didn't have art just for art's sake. But okay, Pieper brings up that phrase and that kind of movement, but they didn't have art meant for transcendence. They had art to advance,
to make the Soviet Union look good. To make the Soviet Union look good. Like, look what we got. Look, we got this shit going over here. And if you look at the art from that time, and it's like depressing and cold. You look at the architecture, and even modern American architecture is getting this way now too. It's cubes and concrete and fucking slabs. So then you get to so look at the other socialist utopia in the Nazis. What did they put over the gates of Auschwitz?
Work macht frei.
Say it one more time because I've cut you off.
Arbeit macht frei. Frei, I said it wrong.
Which means work shall set you free. Mm-hmm. This is exactly what we're fucking talking about, and I'm tying this directly to the real world. The servile work will set you free. This is what they believe. So down to the ideology, they might not have even known it or put a pinhead on it, but they were trying to. Marx, Hitler, Mao, Ho Chi Minh, all these motherfuckers were taking this servile work and replacing it as God and saying the work is going to set you free. The work to prop up the state, the commune. They think that they can build a commune. Mm-hmm. Communes are not made that way. Communes happen by accident. But like a church is supposed to be a community, right? Mm-hmm. It's increasingly not, and I understand it.
A communion even.
The communion even. God.
Communion. Yes.
That's what this book does, dude. That's what this book does. It's only like less than 90 pages, but everything in scripture and everything in economics and everything in politics, they just do this. And they all kind of work. And you go, it's almost like peeking behind the curtain and getting to say, huh? Do you see it now? And I thought to myself, and then I'm going to ask you this question as well. I thought to myself, how many times in my life have I actually been at leisure in the way that Pieper describes it? And honestly, probably less than a handful of times.
Yeah.
My whole life. And the times I actually can remember them vividly because I remember specifically in Texas, sitting outside, drinking a beer by myself. Nobody wants to be awake. And the sun was coming up. And in the distance, there was an oil rig that was. What's that?
So I don't understand why they wouldn't want to be awake.
Yeah, fucking assholes. They want to stay up all night and drink with me. But I'm watching the sunrise, and there's an oil rig behind it, and I wondered, and I marveled, and I contemplated and thought, and was peace almost. And it was fleeting. It probably only lasted a total of two minutes max, but it felt like it's like that's why we end movies that way. That's aspirational. That's why we have the riding into the sunset, or they pan out and they're standing there embracing. It's like those meditative, introspective moments are the aspiration, right?
Yeah, it's like what we just experienced in these 2 hours with these characters. What are they going to do now? What does it all mean? What lesson are we supposed to get from it?
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, when it talk about number of times experience leisure, it's few, and that's a sorry, I'm petting my dog.
No, that's fine. He's a big baby,
and because it seems rare that we get to actually have proper leisure. And I said earlier, and I don't want to spoil it, but it comes down. Leisure is divine worship. It's accepting you and the world as it is and enjoying it for its own sake. And that's kind of the paradox. Like, you have leisure for leisure, but you're also having it to worship God.
Fellowship is leisure.
Yeah. And even sometimes when you go to worship, you go to church, I go to mass, and it just, in our culture, like, you're like, oh, I have to do this. I have to go there for this hour and a half, 2 hours maybe, every Sunday, and do my duty. That's kind of the
because duty is an honorable virtue, right? And you tell that to yourself, but that's not the point.
But the point is there to go to worship God.
Because speaking of Catholicism, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that the Catholic form of liturgy is probably the epitome of liberal art. The actual ceremony
I haven't
itself.
thought about that, but
it is liberal work. It's for its own sake, right?
Yeah.
It's in the furtherance of God's glory, and it's useless.
Yeah,
nothing in it has economic value.
You hit on something so rich. I forgot what I wanted to say, but yeah, right. It's kind of like, you could sit there and think the incense, it represents our prayers going up to God. But also we're just giving that incense to God. Why not? We're going to give that to God.
Why not?
And I forget which gospel it is. And I think it's Mary of Bethany. Don't quote me. Don't quote me right now.
No, we got fact checkers, bro. We'll get fact checked. It's all good.
Fact checkers.
We'll fact check it.
Correct me because I'm wrong. Anoints Christ's feet with oil. Right?
She washes his feet, right?
Yeah, and anoints them with oil. And then Judas says, "Why did you do that? We could have sold that and gave the money to the poor." And Christ responds,
"It was for basically it was for her."
No, he said, "You'll always have the poor with you. This is right because I'm God." Like, she's right because I'm God, and she's giving this to me.
Okay, so I might have in my head when I'm saying that, like, I have a whole bunch of context behind it. Like, it is her performative action. That service, that's for her. She's serving God.
She was serving Christ and the apostles and anointing and cleaning and anointing his feet. Which
it's not because Jesus needs his feet fucking cleaned or oiled.
That's work. That's action.
Right.
But it was for worship. It was for the sake of itself. It was for God. And I
never thought of this before, but I think that's why I enjoy the pomp and circumstance so much, because it is useless. And also, you know what else it has pomp and circumstance? the fucking Marine Corps. Every button, every stripe, everything has a useless purpose. It's for tradition to basically to brainwash you into keeping a tradition. And I think that's another part of this of leisure that is more is coming to us through modernity, is, and that's what keeps it relevant, is that the tradition portion is not being kept, and through the progression of technology, specifically for its own sake, and that's another side of this coin. It's like progress is for its own sake as well, right? But progress is, and this is just a preface.
What do we when they say progress is good? It's like, what are we progressing towards? Now the way they say it is progress itself is good. They have their own goals and whatnot, but it's not.
Here's my question.
For the sake of progress, even if it is for the sake of progress, it's not good because it's for the sake of something.
It's not good. You said those words. That's correct. But how do you know it's not good? Because evil, and you could say the devil, you could say whatever. I just say evil always tells you it is the exact opposite of what it is. Right? If it tells you, oh, this is progress, no, this is Acadia. They're giving you progress and trying to wrap it in the blanket of leisure, but really it's Acadia.
Well, I think
Acadia, however you say it. It's you being distracted from knowing yourself, and through that, then knowing God.
Yeah. You need work to accomplish this goal, and these goals behind it. Don't stop to
pay attention. It's weakness. It's fear. It's fear of recognizing you're weak. It's fear of realizing your weakness. In all of the reality shattering, crippling anxiety and depression that would probably come with that, to realize that you are weak, to have your eyes open to know that you are unworthy. But instead of taking that extra step towards the light of the tunnel, you retreat back into the darkness and saying, no. Like Plato's cave. That's another thing. This thing brings everything together, dude. It's Plato's cave. You're telling them, guys, these things are making the shadows. They're not monsters. Don't worry. And they're like, we will kill you if you take our chains off. Like, do not.
Have you read The Republic?
I did not. I've not read the entire thing. I've only read a English translated a paraphrasing of Plato's cave.
Okay, I'm on book 5 right now.
Ching Gao.
It's books 1 through 4 are amazing. 5's a little trippy, but apparently after it goes back to being amazing. But whenever you stumble or come upon a truth, right? All these other things come into focus. They could be completely unrelated, or so it seems. It seems so to someone who doesn't understand this truth. And when the truth is that you're not meant, so he puts it in the book as the attitude at the time was, we live to work.
Mm-hmm.
But really, we should work to live. And understanding that difference, it's just like,
yeah, you work to be at leisure.
I'll tell you, understanding that went from, man, I'm spending so much time at work doing this whatever I do, and it's like I'm gonna go home and spend time with my daughter. I'm gonna watch some YouTube and go to sleep and do it again. That's the live to work, right? Like
right.
I'm getting these 2 days off so I can go back Monday recharged and work harder. But when you put it in the context of I work to live, you worked 8 hours, and you know what your thought is at the end of the day? It's time to live. Now, I got 4, 6, 8, however much time until I go to bed to live my life, to worship God, to realize who I am, what I'm supposed to do, what this all means.
To maybe suss out and or attempt to reveal God's plan for you.
Yeah, that. And if you want to, I guess the secular way of saying that, well, not totally secular.
Yeah.
But it would be to do philosophy, to live, to enjoy life.
When people are dying of cancer, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be. That's not the point. I don't need to say names or anything, but in general, when you hear somebody like dying, as they say they're dying of cancer, and they life comes in focus, and I can now see clearly all the things that are important, right? I should watch more. That Tim McGraw wrote a song about it, won a bunch of Grammys. Like, I would have done this. I would have hugged a little closer. I would have loved a little deeper. I would have watched a sunset. I would have ridden a bull. I would have taken life to seize the day.
By the horns, yeah.
Yeah, by the horns, and to carpe the fucking diem. But what does that mean? Does that mean that they finally discovered leisure and introspected, found God?
Yeah. Well, when you can't work,
dude, that's another thing. That's another thing.
You either despair, or you figure out what leisure is. And if you're a cancer patient, and hopefully you figure out what leisure is, and if those are your last moments, those last months or years on this earth, you live them. Otherwise you despair, and you sit in your room, ungrateful, not understanding what any of this is for, and you're like, I can't work, so I'm useless. Thinking yourself useless is probably the worst thing you can do, because if you're useless, why be alive?
Exactly. And if you might as well just kill yourself, which they're literally doing all around the world. They're doing it in Austria. They're doing it in Canada. They're euthanizing people. There was a girl who was in a terrorist attack. I believe it was Belgium or Austria. I can't remember. I couldn't find it on a map if you wanted to, but she had such crippling PTSD that she couldn't take it. And they're like, oh, we followed all the protocols. And I was like, first of all, which one of y'all wrote the fucking protocols for euthanizing a 20-year-old?
Dude, is it the Netherlands or Belgium? One of the two.
It might be Belgium.
It's Belgium. It's definitely.
You got me.
Their euthanasia laws are either so relaxed or so unenforced. Like, people are being killed who didn't want to die.
Or if they had been asked a certain set of questions, probably would have been like, oh, wait a second.
Going through an episode of depression or anxiety or whatever, are like, kill me now. And then when it comes time to administer the medicine, they say, no, I don't want this. But they give it to them anyways, because that's what they wanted during their episode 2 weeks prior. So,
well, that's a completely different podcast, because all roads of power lead to population control. And I've noticed these dots and connected them. And I know it sounds like you were talking about earlier, like when you see the truth and you can see unrelated things and put them together. It's not psychosis, it's clarity. And I'm not on drugs. I'm not, a crazy person. I don't think, the earth is flat or anything, because I've run into some of those people, and that's when I start going, you cray. That's how you know they're fucked up. But to for me, like exactly like you said, this book, I was always referred to as the little book, Scalia. This little book.
Well, so we talked about this before, but that's Reverend Paul. Is it Paul Scalia?
Doesn't get his first name.
The son of.
No way, Antonin
Scalia.
Dude, that family that family doesn't miss, bro. That family doesn't miss.
Family doesn't miss. The son of a Supreme Court justice, Catholic priest.
absolute savage of a scholar, like probably smarter than 10 of the smartest people. Just absolutely, like listening to him speak, you go, and then what? Like you're like, please tell me.
Oh, I love it. I love it when you're like, don't stop, keep going.
Yeah, he's like, thank you, and it's like, no, fuck Q&A. I want you to just keep fucking talking. So you know what's funny is I feel like, and I let's personalize this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about, like I said, only that I can remember, or even bring to the front of my mind the amount of times that I've ever even achieved leisure. I will say that that even though I'm acting in more of the, and by the way, waking me up to this, I'm acting more as an economic agent, going like on vacations and stuff.
We all do it. We all
do it, but like going on a cruise, going to the Bahamas, you know what I mean? Like with my wife, a lot of times, and I think my wife has been, and I'm going to have this long talk with her, because as I was reading this, I'm thinking to myself, shit, my wife is way better at leisure than me. And I'm supposed to be the, smart one. But she inadvertently is more leisurely in the peeper context. Like last night, I was doing my fantasy football podcast with my buddy Randy, talking trash as we do. And she was downstairs with two of her friends, painting figurines, like Christmas gnomes, taking their time and talking about this and that, just not mindless jibber jabber, but more like fellowship, secular fellowship, secular. But I'm thinking to myself, that is probably the most leisurely thing that I can think of, apart from just sitting on a beach. You know what I mean? Like
they were doing art.
Yeah, they were doing art for what sake? Because those things are useless. But that's a good term. I mean, that's the term. That's the term when you say there's a checklist.
What kind of figurines were they?
They were those cute little gnomes that have the hats over their eyes, and they have the round nose and a beard that comes down to here, and they like have the presents hidden behind their back.
But maybe someone will see one of those. Oh, it's holding a present. You know who brings presents?
Santa.
Saint Nick, or Santa Claus. Saint Nick, Saint Nicholas. Oh, the bishop who by legend punched Arius, the heretic. Oh, Jesus. Arius thought Jesus was only man, but he's not.
And then Santa Claus, Saint Nicholas pimp slapped him back to reality.
That's the legend, but that's you see that, and if you're educated, he talks about education in the essay. If you're educated and you contemplate a gnome holding a present behind its back, maybe you're drawn, to Christ. And
let's talk about education now, because you brought it up. So let's go down that rabbit hole really quick. So in education, we find before we say that again.
Can I go get another beer?
Please do.
Okay.
So while he's away, I'm gonna set the stage for education for you guys. Liberal arts used to be an education you could get like in the classics, right? If you didn't major in the classics, like you just received them. Okay.
Are you a big Latin guy? Do you know any Latin?
I do not, but as a product of me listening to more and more Catholic lectures and things like that, I'm starting to like pick up on it. And I love the etymology of words now, because it's actually like really revealing as to what someone's saying.
If I was more dedicated, I could totally be a philologist. But have you heard of the saying "in vino veritas"? Oh,
yeah. In wine, there's freedom.
Truth, veritas. Truth.
Oh, veritas. Excuse me, truth.
I just need to learn what beer is in Latin and adjust.
I don't know what beer would be, but cheers. Prost.
Sláinte. I'm not even Irish, but I'll say sláinte.
Kampai.
Drink. Just drink.
Salute. Yeah. I know a lot of ways to say cheers, okay? But I was saying education.
Yeah.
So education, when you used to get a liberal arts degree, This is before you had like a major in the classics.
Mm-hmm.
Like you would learn a bunch of useless shit, but the amalgamation of which would make you more employable from the sheer fact that you would be equipped to handle a diverse section of problems and situations. You would have philosophy more and more. Like I think I'm not sure if it was Scalia who was saying it, but he's saying like when my grandfather went to college, it's like you had to get 4 or 6 philosophy courses.
When I was going to college, I had to take one humanities class. Liberal arts is what we call it humanities.
Humanities now, yeah.
And even that's kind of been corrupted.
How very Marxist, honestly. Oh man, do you know about Pablo Freire or Paulo Freire?
No, I don't.
I'm gonna make you read up on him, and then you're gonna realize how effed our education system is. Continue.
I only had to take one humanities class. You know what? At the time, I didn't know better at the time, but the one I chose, and obviously an option for humanities, I took psychology. You know what psychology is?
It's fake.
It's not fake. It's the scientific explanation of how our spiritual life should go. That I came up with it. I came up with that off the cuff.
Yeah, but it's devoid of the spirituality of itself.
Yeah, it's missing the key ingredient. But the more I got into theology, it was like, and I'm do not quiz me on theology. Maybe on definitions of things, but not
broad strokes on theology for me.
But the more I understood, there we go. The more I understood theology, the more okay, I knew this, but in a psychological sense. You want to know why Jordan Peterson makes so much sense and why so many people are telling him, "I'm Christian now because of you"?
Yeah, because and I was going to bring this up about the movie thing.
What the tradition has said for 2,000 years.
Yeah, he's saying things that ring true, and I love the term "ring true" because it's like a bell. Because when you hear a bell, you know what it is. It's a bell, and you can't unring it once it's rung. And that's another analogy. I love metaphor, and I love analogy. I love it so much. And I'm poetry. I'm so good. And you know what's funny is I should have been a poet. Because I'm very good at that. I'm very good at turn of phrase, and I'm very good at analogy. And I love when I say ring true. When I was going to bring it up in the movies, whenever movies used to be made, a good one would ring true in its in the totality of its story and its characters. If the characters were believable, if you believed it, it would ring true. But they had to go to that place where they would say this can happen, or even if it was fantastical and science fiction, it's like this nugget is true in this fake world. Increasingly, we are being force-fed ideology that is not true, and they masquerade it in a movie, and that's why people watch a movie and they're like, they don't know why it sucks. They just know, all those Netflix movies, you're like, I don't know why this sucks, but I don't like it. And that's when you watch older movies, you start to go, even if they're made by an absolute leftist. Like if you watch Andrew Klavan's podcast, he explains it in much greater detail. He's like, some communist will make something and it will be the most conservative thing that you've ever seen.
Do you have something specific?
By accident. Let's go ahead.
So do you have something specific?
Okay. I have one.
Thinking of, I saw a movie. It's like I knew who the director was. I'm like, I did not expect this.
I would say the Dirty Harry movies specifically.
Okay, so we could just say Hollywood in general, but he's more Law and Order kind of.
No, but at the time when those movies were made, it was a lot like today, where it was lawlessness. There was a lot of high rates of crime. Death Wish came out at the same time, so it's the personification of the revenger is going out and just cleaning the streets up, and it's like, yeah, that's what we need. You know what I mean? It's like it taps into something that's true in the zeitgeist at the time. And a lot of these films, you watch them, not every film is timeless. A lot of films are of their time, and that's not a bad thing. You just have to know what was going on at the time.
Yeah.
Now, the films that are timeless just so happen to be because the allegories are universal.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of like Tolkien, another great Catholic. I mean,
If it comes to a lull, I've got another English author I want to ask you about.
he never. Okay, I think I know who it is. But Tolkien hated allegory outright. Absolutely hated. He abhorred allegory.
Catholic English author.
Catholic English, C.S. Lewis.
No, he was Anglican. Chesterton.
What? No.
Oh yeah, Lewis was Anglican. I'm talking about Chesterton. If you
Chesterton. I have no idea about Chesterton.
You don't know that. Okay, we can talk about Lewis though. But okay, sorry.
No. Please go. No, go into. So that was basically the end of my point. Is like, so Tolkien was able to take his Christian faith, his Catholic faith, and weave it into a fantasy of English tradition, right? Their where they came from, their roots. What do they call it?
He said about Lord of the Rings, right?
It's their lore.
No. It didn't start out as a Catholic novel, but
no, not at all. That's what I'm saying. It's not an allegory, but it's so in there. It's so baked in that even without allegory, it's moral, it's truthful.
Yes. It's still a little bit allegorical, and I think his thought on allegory, I don't understand it, but I am aware of that he didn't like
he didn't like one-to-one, like one-to-one. Oh, the slave becomes the master. You know what I mean? It's like
he didn't like in this other world, Jesus the lion kind of allegory.
Yeah, like the way to shit on C.S. Lewis.
Well, they're friends, so I think he could get away with it. He's still, I think, some people think. I don't know. I haven't read or heard the quotes. I think he was still okay because allegorically, in a way, Frodo is a Christ figure, Gandalf is a Christ figure, Eric is a Christ figure.
Isn't that crazy? How there's not just one person. It's not the Matrix where it's so simplified and so on the nose.
Yeah. Isn't the Matrix just the allegory of the cave?
It is 100%. And with some Christianity shoved in there that doesn't quite fit in the box, but like is 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. But what you're saying about Tolkien having several Christ figures in his stories allegorically, even though he's not doing one-to-one, that lends itself to be true because we are all made in the image of God and should aspire to be Christ-like, right? That's our goal. That's what we should be doing.
So
we should all make those decisions. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so in Catholic teaching, when you're baptized, you become like Christ in such a way that you're priest, prophet, and king. Well, Christ is priest, prophet, and king, and we're supposed to share in that. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about this, but I've had the thought: priest, prophet, and king. You think king? Okay, obviously Aragorn. And then I think Gandalf would be priest, and
and Frodo is prophet
somehow. But now that I'm saying it out loud,
no, that makes sense because Gandalf is the keeper. He's the keeper of the faith, right?
Yeah, but I think some ways
the steward
Sam would be prophet instead of Frodo. But
good. Hey,
I couldn't.
His brother's keeper.
But now I have another. Another option. I got to think about it more. But yeah, the king one is obvious, right?
Obvious.
Gandalf, I think, would be priest, and then prophet is a little muddier.
So Tolkien was doing exactly what successful modern day writers would do. Is he would take a single person and split them into their subjective traits. Like when you talk about like the show, I know. Please don't attack me in the comments. I'm not comparing the two things. I'm just saying, like in the show Friends, everybody's like,
Can I attack you? I'm not
Jesus.
I grew up watching Friends, and I thought it was great as like a 12-year-old. But now I realize, when I'm almost 30, what a bunch of degenerates.
I still think it's hilarious because I take it for what it is.
Yeah.
But I watched every episode live, which is uncanny. So, but think about this: the male characters, you get Ross and Joey and Chandler. They're not separate people. That's like the id of like one guy. He's got his horny side, his intellectual side, and his goofy side, right? But you split those into characters, and that's what makes sitcom work because it's very shallow.
Yeah.
It's a shallow art. But then you skip back to Tolkien, and a person who perfects it takes those characters and pushes those virtues to their absolute limits against ultimate evil. By the way, evil for evil's sake. We're talking about Saruman. Why would Saruman give in to the dark side? Why? Because sometimes power, it's so sweet.
Well, Sauron would be, I guess.
No, Saruman. Yeah, Sauron is like Satan. He's like the devil. He's the fallen, right?
He wants to use evil for the good, right? Because
that's his rationale, but that's how it always goes. Like, hey, there's so much power over there in that evil stuff over there, and God's like, yeah, that's not the way. And you're like, yeah, but there's a lot of power in it, and power is like you can wield it, right?
You can read it as a message against the means justifies the ends.
Yeah, that's why he created the rings, because he wanted to control it. He thought I can devise a way to control it. I'm smarter than everybody else that's ever tried to control this thing. I can control
it. Wanted to. I think you could read him as he wanted to make things better, at least the way he justified it to Gandalf. Later on, maybe not. But if you
go down the path,
if you take him at his word in the Fellowship when he's talking to Gandalf, he wants to use this means to a good end.
He's like, yes, there's going to be bloodshed, but at the end of it, there'll be peace.
But Gandalf recognizes, no, that means one won't contribute to your end.
Mm-hmm.
You can't use it because it has its own end. Not only will it not contribute to yours, but it has its own.
And it'll corrupt you. And this was written by a man who had lived through the First World War, the Great War. I hate it when people call it the First World War, because after now being more educated on the subject, it's the Great War. And World War II, I don't know if you've read Victor Davis Hanson's treatise, The Second World Wars. It's this fucking thick. But there is a Hillsdale College class that you could take, which I'm taking, and it kind of sums it up. It breaks it up into there was no World War II. There was several wars that happened all at the same time in the 30s and 40s that we colloquially we call it World War II. And then there is the Great War. And the Great War was very specifically, it's like, we should war because we can. Because we got because we have the progress, right? Tying it back. Because we have the progress. We have all these. Have you seen the cannons that shot 1,500-pound stones over a mile, and it took 60 oxen and 200 men to set up?
Is that the Great War? Is that
the Great War? It's mind-boggling what the Germans had, dude. The
20th century is on par with the 16th century and the first century.
Genghis Khan is a bitch compared to the 20th century.
In general. The Reformation. I would say.
Oh, yeah. I'm being hyperbolic now.
But because Europe and America at the turn of the 20th century, before the Great War, industrializing, yes, but still largely agrarian, still overwhelmingly Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And you had in Europe, you had Catholic countries and you had Protestant countries.
And they were always warring and killing each other. We get it.
After World War II, industrialization across the board. Capitalism across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Well, capitalism and communism.
Where it's allowed.
and it was a sea change. It was.
I mean, even China, even look, if you take that narrative down the road, kick the can down a little bit. I mean, even China in their communism turns to capitalism, then reverting into like a neo-fascism. So all of these collectivization ideologies, every single one of them is left-wing. Every single one of them is based on socialism. And then they just branch off into a different part of it. And it's all bad. And I would argue that the ideology of the right wing, you pass conservatism and you go right to anarchy. Anarchy is like, no, I'm going to do whatever I want, whenever, anybody, all the time. Just don't. And you, like, we've breezed right past libertarianism. It's like, no, whatever I want all the time, whatever makes me feel good all the time. Materialism. And it's still materialism. It's still materialism. It's hilarious.
Okay, have you heard of the Horseshoe Theory?
Yeah, the horseshoe
directions, you meet back up. That's what it is. Collectivism. All right, let's look at collectivism. You are all. This can be the. I don't want to just say nationalism. I think nationalism sometimes gets conflated with patriotism. So when I say
of course,
nationalism, I mean what some people would consider ultra nationalism. When the more quote unquote
more fascist
patriotism. And so we'll say ultra nationalists and I'm talking about collectivism and the communists, right? It's you as a person, your identity and your worth and your value and what you can contribute is in the context of the nation, right?
Yeah, you as an economic agent
so
are in service to the nation, the party, the people, whatever they call it.
You're part of this group. So you as an individual don't matter.
But also, if you don't do what you're told, it matters.
Yeah. So you are included in this large group, but you're isolated because you can't connect to another person as another individual, right? You only connect to other people. Can you hear my dog whining?
Yeah. Does he need to go outside?
Yeah, I'm going to hold this thought. Hold on.
No, let him out. I'll hold it for you. I know where you're going.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, this does happen. I've seen that we got a couple of likes there on the old Facebook. Also, I see people coming in and watching for a little bit, and then it's tuning out. So what I am going to recommend is we've been going at it for an hour. We're probably going to go in for another 30 minutes or so. But really, I can understand how you could get off track. Like I saw when we were doing the Lord of the Rings stuff, there was like 2 or 3 people watching it because it's culturally relevant, right? Tanner, I'm just telling them about like how I see we've got a couple likes and people are coming in and watching and then backing off and then coming in and while we were doing Lord of the Rings, people were like, there was a bunch of people tuned in, and then once you start talking about Christianity, they're like, I'll watch it later. Like, but
okay,
collectivism. You as an individual, you're not allowed to connect with people as an individual. You're only allowed to in the context of the state.
Your only reference is in the collective, whether it be nationally or
ideologically.
Yeah. So you're isolated because you cannot connect to another person as a person, right? Like I couldn't connect to you. Like I'm Tanner from Texas with such and such traits or qualities. I cannot connect with you as Tyler in Tennessee from California, right?
Yeah, born.
I did 300
you cis het white male.
Yeah. We cannot connect on an individual level like that because we have to connect as we'll say American social
on a national level. And on a national level, we were both Texans at one time.
Both of we have to connect on that level, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're isolated. I can't come to you like, hey, I have this problem, which ousts me as not part of the collective.
Right.
Individualism. All right. So you're isolated in collectivism. Individualism. You cannot connect with somebody because
You're too much of an individual.
I
You're-
I have quality A. You don't have quality A. You have quality B. We're too different.
I'm too much of a me to understand that why you're a you.
To me, you're to you. There's no.
And you're talking ends of the spectrum, because that's exactly what I was trying to say.
On both ends of the spectrum, you're isolated. You're alone because you're you, and you can't connect to anybody else because they're not you.
But the only way that you can, and this is something that I've always jockeyed for, and now, like I said, all the things are coming together, and all of them, they're kind of doing this. At the bottom of the horseshoe, you have individualism with voluntary collectivism. You are an individual who decides, I want to be more than myself because I know myself and I know that there is more than myself, and I want to be a part of a community, of a collective that believes the same thing, and that is the one that prospers for everybody.
I would put that. I'm holding up my fingers in a U. For people who can't see, not on the the apex, but
a
little bit above.
Oh, really?
I would say that nice top or bottom, however you imagine it, of the parabola would be family.
Ah, yes. Because no, you're right. Okay, because if you want to individualize it even more, because you got to do what's right for your family, not just for yourself.
You can't isolate yourself from your family.
So, so what I'm talking about, like you said, what I'm talking about is up here. The family is at the very bottom.
So if you had a U, if you're looking at a U,
it's the keystone.
The bottom middle, that's the family. If you go either way, up above it, just a little bit, you either get to I'm on the collectivist side, it's on
socialist, communist, Nazi, fascist.
We're all the same. You're all together. It's
all of them.
And then on the individualist side, it's I have to make a voluntary, an act of the will to love my duty to my family is based on an act of the will.
Yeah, like I have to quantify and qualify why I should give love to my family instead of just going with the human instinct of I love you unconditionally.
So this is
because it's almost like libertarianism goes in that direction of just pure individualism because they're unable to reconcile the fact that it's like, hey, there's a such thing as human emotion. We're not robots. I understand that you're trying to use logic to try to push us away from collectivism, but you just went right past where we're supposed to be, and you went over there.
Yeah,
the family is right here, and it sounds almost like beating a dead horse. It sounds overly simplified, but I do agree with you that that's exactly. It's not a U, it's an arch, and family is the keystone.
Yeah, I recognize love is an act of the will, and we can get to that if that's confusing.
Love is work. Love is liberal art. It is. You have to work at it. It requires work.
I would say it takes effort. I don't know if I.
Okay, I don't want to be. I'm not trying to be a socialist and say this kind of work, that kind of work, intellectual work, sex work. No, I'm not. That's not what I mean.
Love is an act of will. But if you reduce it, I don't want to call it work. If you reduce it to a duty, the individual side reduces it to
an obligation.
Well, I think obligation pulls you out of the individualism. So
really, okay, you're right. Okay,
takes it from a duty. So you could either take away, you could even take away,
because duty implies a collective as well. So it's an imperative, almost biologically. Even
that apex is the duty of family. And if you ignore that duty, but still choose, maybe, we're thinking this through.
Okay. Yeah, we're talking it out.
You're on that individualist side. But if you extend that duty outside of your actual family, you're on the collectivist side. And okay,
Yeah, if you foist duty onto somebody for a cause, that collectivist, but if you internalize your duty to the point where you're frozen in action,
if you
because am I being true to myself? I don't know, because they're not actually they're not actually being actually introspective. They're just asking, is this introspective?
if you don't recognize the duty, whether or not you will to love, that's drawing you out, that's drawing you towards individualism out of the family. Family is, no, you should love. Now, okay, ought and is, right? Like you.
I think what we're talking about is on this horseshoe thing, and what we're actually like sussing out is, truthfully, is the what is good. And we're not talking about context yet. We're not talking about in a certain situation. We're just saying, what is good? Give me the horseshoe. This side, collectivist, individual, and then come back down the family. That is what is good. Why? Because it's good.
So I'm still working on Plato. I think it was Aristotle who.
Catholics love Aristotle, bro.
Okay, well, Saint Thomas. Well,
Aquinas. Shout out. Shout out.
Hey, I'm kind of disappointed that I didn't say Thomas Aquinas. You said Aquinas for me.
I mean, I haven't read everything that he's done. I've only, like I said, paraphrase.
Yeah. Well,
this is a good time to say I'm dipping my toes in the Catholic water, and I'm being enticed. I'm just saying.
So I think it was Aristotle who said, like, virtues are the means between the vices. That was a rough paraphrase. Courage, between cowardice and recklessness, you have courage right in the middle, and that's between individualism and collectivism. You have that middle,
a loving family,
and I'm identifying it, and I'm not the only one, I don't think. Now, I'm identifying it as family, because it's personal enough where it's related to you. It's not. Mm-hmm. It's not Igor in Serbia when you're in Moscow.
Yeah. It's not you, but it is you.
You're not separated enough from the guy who lives next door that you can't call neighbor because you don't talk to him. And yeah.
That's something that even secular people can latch onto, is family. Immediate family.
I mean, I would say if you're no one's non-religious, but if you call yourself non-religious or you call yourself spiritual.
Oh, I have an opinion about that, and it's gonna fucking wreck you. Just wait.
If you're quote unquote non-religious, read Plato. I haven't gone to Aristotle, so I can't commend it, or I can't recommend it. Read the. Where's it at?
I heard somebody say I heard somebody say while I was researching this that the Catholics are the most scholarly of the theologians because they always have one foot at least on Aristotle's shoulders.
Yeah. Pieper in the second essay in the book I have, The Philosophical Act, he talks about so I think in seminary, like Catholic seminaries, you learn philosophy first, and then you learn theology. Which, as learning, I guess it makes sense because you learn how to think and then what to think.
What to think, yeah.
Then that's not disparaging theology.
I know, because all education is discriminatory, and you do in certain contexts have to be told what to think in order to then think how to think. But you're right in the sense that we're saying, like, in philosophy you have to learn like what is think in order to think theology.
Pieper kind of flips that when he says that. How did he put it? I don't remember if he said philosophy is or no philosophy is not informed. So either philosophy is informed by theology or no philosophy is not informed by theology.
Either way, whether you do it positively or negatively,
Yeah.
there is no philosophy without religion,
Yeah. There's no philosophy without theology.
without God.
And you're going to have religion with that.
And what's funny is I'm glad you said that, because I had an epiphany today. Like, I really came to it today because I've always been trying to find a way to describe describe and ascribe to atheists, to agnostics, to I would always be like, well, atheists believe in God, they just hate him. Like I'm almost like a comedian trying to come up with a bit.
I've heard that.
But here's the thing. I think everybody knows God exists. Some people just choose to ignore him. And that is on a spectrum. So it's like atheists knows God exists. They just are like, nope. Satanists know God exists, and they're like, fuck you, I'm doing the other thing. Seculars know God exists, but they feel like that I'm going to be persecuted by God if I admit that I'm a sinner.
What's the number one religion in America today?
Oh, today? Shit, probably wouldn't even know.
Moralistic. This isn't like people who subscribe to it, but like, I think if you survey people, like what their beliefs are.
I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious.
Moralistic therapeutic deism.
Oof.
Moralistic because this God gives us some sort of law to follow.
It's like the worship of nature or some shit.
Because knowing he's there, or
it makes you feel
better. Follow this law makes you feel better. Deism because he doesn't interact or intervene in the world. It's moralistic therapeutic deism.
Because deity forbid, I might actually have to fucking stand to reckon for what I've done.
Exactly. As long as you feel good about yourself and vaguely attempted to do what was right.
Penance.
You're all right.
Isn't that the coolest thing ever? That you can sit there and tear apart every anti-religious position from the position that he exists. Like it's almost like the greatest meme, the greatest troll of all time is be like, yeah, God exists. So, and they're like, no, he doesn't. You're like, yeah, he does. And you know it. You know it. I know you're saying you don't, but you know it.
The argument that atheists either secretly or whatever believe that there is a God, they just reject him. I can see how it works. Something tells me not to just accept it and go with it, but I can't argue against it.
No, they know he exists, and they're just trying to convince as many people as they can that he doesn't, so they don't feel alone.
I will say that there's plenty of people who are angry at God.
Yeah, they're mad.
And go from there.
Because that's what the devil tries to do, is he tries to, like I said before, evil tells you that they're a virtue when they're not. They tell you the exact opposite of what evil is doing. So when they tell you, and this is why there are so many parables of this. Why would God let this happen? Is that's like the premier line of the devil. If God existed, why would he let this happen?
The problem,
right?
Do you want to talk about that?
Let's do that, dude. I don't even care. Like, let's go into the second hour. Let's do this shit.
Okay. Can we take a quick break though? I gotta let dog in, take care of some business.
Let dog in, and then go ahead and set up the next premise while I get 2 more beers when you come back.
Okay. Am I good to go?
No, yeah, go for it.
Okay.
I'm going to explain to the audience. So, for those of you that have been with us this entire hour and 19 minutes, we have moved through Joseph Pieper's Leisure in Culture. I can't remember the basis, Leisure or the Basis of Culture, which basically, to summarize very quickly, leisure in the sense of the word that we are quiet, calm, introspective, in the moment, in the surroundings, knowing ourselves, like the Greeks would say, know thyself. And then what Shakespeare would say, to thine own self be true. Once you have that, you would then realize that God also exists and that God is real. So when you, and I know I'm smiling because I'm just super happy about, I just read this last week and all of this is just like coming together. So when you know yourself, then you can truly know God. And that's what leisure does. It allows you to live a godly life because you're not living to work. You're working to live, to be godly, right? So we go around and we're trying to apply this to our real lives. And we realize that like technology, the progress of technology by itself is corrupting us. And it is the antithesis of leisure. It's the opposite. It's acadia, however you say it. It's asadia. It is the busyness that distracts you from knowing yourself and from knowing God. It is and it's what Kant would say, the idle 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 hands of the devil workshop. It's that idleness is actually busy, like very complex and muddy, and it keeps you busy to the fact and away from the fact that God exists. So that's what we have gone over this far in leisure. So Tanner, what I want you to do is while I go get my 2 beers, I want you to kind of set up what we're going to go through, and then
well, we're going to start with the problem of evil.
the problem of evil.
And what else do you want to do?
All right, go for it.
Okay. For anyone who's wondering, this is my first podcast that I've ever been on. So the problem of evil is, to put it simply, succinctly, if God exists and he is all-knowing, all-powerful, and all good, why would he allow bad things or evil things to happen? It's a difficult question. Don't tell Tyler this. I'm not an apologist. I'm not a theologian. I'm not a philosopher. And well, I'm not a philosopher in deeper sense. Deeper says you do philosophy for the sake of philosophy. I think for this, well, maybe this still counts. I think for the sake of knowing God better. So maybe in a way I am a philosopher, but I might not have the best explanations or all the answers. I'll give it to you. You want to know what I told you to the viewers?
We're all philosophers, dude.
Yeah. Well, so
That's the problem with evil. I was listening, by the way.
okay.
I turned my speakers on.
I was just going. I was like, I don't know what to say.
So no, seriously, like you basically are hitting the nail on the head. You're basically saying, if God exists, why would he let the devil exist? And it's to let you know that God exists. And you say, that sounds counterintuitive. You're like, yeah, it does. You know why? Because if for anyone that's ever experienced hope or love, to know that exists and that there is a counter to it, God has to exist. If you've ever, and I know I'm childless and it's, it wasn't in the cards for me, but when I hear described, like my close friends, they're like, dude, once you have a kid, like you have no idea, like the love, and I can sympathize with that and say, there can't be anything better than that. It's like, that's how you know God exists. He has to, because, and it's not the other way around. That's, like I said, evil is always masquerading as the thing that it actually is. So it's actually reversed. The problem with God is actually reversed. It's like, if evil exists, or if good exists, how do you know evil exists? That's the actual question. It's like, that good exists because you've seen it, you've experienced it, you've obviously felt love in your life.
I would say it's harder. It's easier to doubt good than it is easier to doubt pain. And
I
but
agree. And
you
that's such a succinct way to put it.
be,
And it is very much exactly what I was trying to say.
because well,
It's all what but it's all what you justify. It's all what you give. It's all what you give your attention to. If you have experienced a lot of pain and you become cynical and you give up, it's
Mhm.
very easy to give into that and say, well, fuck it. Everything's really bad. And that God thing that you should always talking about, it's a distraction from all the bad things that are happening. And I would contest that and say, no, all of these bad things are happening, and even as they're increasing in frequency and in scope,
Mhm.
I would say that's the biggest reason to say cherish the good that we do have. Good still exists, does it not? Does it not shine through? Do we not make? I know what I'm going back to the movies metaphor. Do we not make movies about hope triumphing over
I'm-
evil?
Okay, as we talk about this, I'm going to ask you to help me
Okay.
tie in gratitude. So I think gratitude is the answer to the problem of evil. And
Ooh,
I just kind of sidebar here. I had deja vu.
please go for it.
Like I've been in this conversation before. I just want to point that out. I
Maybe
love
you dreamed it. You dreamed it. I've had many a dreams like that myself.
deja
It's
vu is amazing.
it's never consequential, really,
Well,
but it's always meaningful.
yeah,
But
yeah.
not
It was like I know the next thing to do or say, and then I say it or do it, and it's just like that's right. I'm going. Okay, but I want you to help. We can let's answer this together because I can give the standard answer. Do I completely understand it? No.
That's the great part about the tavern, bro. We
Do I?
talk it out.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
you have to put it out into the world in order to flesh it out.
Do I accept it? Yes. Do I accept it on the terms an atheist would accept it? No.
No, okay,
I'll,
I get it.
um,
Gratitude is
I think gratitude. Just think about it. Imagine you're at work,
okay.
right, and you're having a shitty day.
Oh, dude, you're hitting close to home here. Watch
Oh,
out now.
I'm coming from home. Is what's happening. And it's like, okay, let's back up. Let's not say a shitty day. You're having a day that would be less than pleasurable, and
Okay.
you can either say, "Wow, this day is shit. This day is bad, not fun, not good," or you can be like, "You know what? I get to work. I get to make money. I get to provide for my family." Right? So gratitude makes a difference.
When you realize it,
So if you have gratitude, I think evil it makes the
okay.
difference in evil because
Let me,
I think
can I
I
can I
think
offer a proof to this?
well, I'm gonna say one point and then yeah.
Please go. Give me your point.
Gratitude is a difference from accepting that proof that like a very cynical atheist wouldn't accept.
Right.
But not accepting it and accepting it, you know.
I'm making notes.
You're taking notes. I'm winging this, man, and I got to remember.
Well, I'm just trying to keep my place. So to give an anecdotal proof to your scenario, it's exactly like you said. I was having a shitty month, right? I was in an incident with a forklift. It tipped over while I was on a steep grade with a thick curb, hydraulics, no suspension,
This
flipped
is awesome,
over.
but I have a terrible forklift story.
Ooh.
I was working in the yard. I was working. We made water towers, and so we had like 8 or 10 foot by I'll have to put it in inches. 300 to 600-inch plates of steel.
Hopefully not in Senegal.
No. This was Texas. And I helped run the crane.
Inside joke. Sorry, guys.
And one day there's a commotion going on over by the shop next to a truck.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the helper and the crane operator. I could operate the crane, but I was the help, like position wise. The operator ran over there and came back after the care flight came in. This man got out of his truck while they're trying to load. When I say forklift, I don't mean you little Hyster 80.
No, not even a Yale, not a Toyota, not even a Skytrack.
Not your stand up. Put some boxes on the shelf for Amazon. I'm talking about
an articulated like Oshkosh John Deere forklift, right?
It was as big as one that would be articulated, but it wasn't articulated. Like,
okay,
it was big. And well, this truck driver got pierced through. I didn't see it. I'm glad I didn't. But for anyone listening, if you work with forklifts, if you work around people who work with forklifts, stay away. Don't get in their way. Don't try to direct them. If they're doing something you think is wrong, get 15 feet away and start shouting. Don't get between them.
Because there's no way that they're going to see you in time.
I'm sorry.
Or they're going to know that. No. And to tag on to that story, I actually know a guy who has a confirmed kill with a forklift.
Well, I guess technically so do I, but...
and so do you. in different reasons.
We could tie this. Let's tie this into the problem of evil. This man, the only thing he did wrong was get out of his truck and be a little pushy. He still died.
Yeah, because he didn't realize the stakes and or the capacity of what was in front of him.
So I think,
and that you bring up a very good point. I think you're bringing up a very good point to the anecdote that I was going to use to prove your theory, which is I was having a shitty month. I'm currently an inside salesman, but I also carry a CDL. I'm the only one in the company which is moderately large company. We're $500 million a year company. My little part of the world is doing like 2 to 3 million a year in sales, which is badass. But I'm driving because we're short a driver and we're still in the process of hiring one. And I'm not transitioning back to it very well.
Mm-hmm.
And, I roll my forklift, which is
the Holland sand.
No, actually that's Holland building products. I was carrying a basically a screen room, but made out of glass. And I was carrying all the parts on a pallet into a backyard, and it's very steep, and there's a gate, and you have to go through it. And I'm coming back out without the balancing agent of the load that I was carrying, and I'm going up, a 4-inch curb of a walkway, and as it bounces, it kind of catches its weight and just kept going, flipped me over. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like,
so you rolled your truck?
What's that?
You rolled your truck?
The forklift.
Oh, forklift.
The forklift that goes on the truck, on the back of the truck, the piggyback. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, man, this fucking sucks. I fucking hate this. I don't want to be here. Basically anti-gratitude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But my boss, who is actually, turns out, is actually a very deeply Christian guy, is always like, hey man, are you okay? Like, first thing he's like, are you okay? And he's like, no, but seriously, are you okay? Are you doing all right? How you feeling? And then after that's all cleared up, he's like, okay. He's like, hey, thanks for everything you do. I understand. I know what it's like. You're in a hurry. We put this on you last minute. We did all this other stuff. He goes, I appreciate, and he's like articulating to me that he appreciates it. And his gratitude makes me have gratitude. So to add on to what you're saying is not just you trying to find the gratitude within yourself, but it can actually, it's transmissible. You can give it to somebody else.
That's iron sharpens iron and man sharpens man. Hey, yeah.
Did we just come up to another axiom? Did we just fucking prove another axiom up in this motherfucker? Come on now.
Proof? I guess you call it a proof. I would say a
I
real
would call it a proof. It's axiomatic, bro.
an axiom. Okay, so
Let's over exaggerate our accomplishments.
you want to know the name of the dialogue I'm about to quote, or should I just go with it?
The name of the who?
The Socratic dialogue I'm about to quote.
No, please tell me, because I probably don't know it.
Let me find the book. Hold on. Hopefully this won't take too long. It should be right.
Well, not at all. Oh, yeah. By the way, while he's looking for that, I actually have another book that I've read, and I'm just checking my text messages here to make sure my wife's not yelling at me. So I actually have another book. I have a book sitting right here. Well, after you do this,
What were we just saying
a Socratic dialogue.
Before that?
What?
Okay.
Gratitude.
Oh, man, I wish I had an index. So, just for the viewers and for the listeners, I'll read this. For the viewers, I have 2 copies of this book because the one I'm about to show you is the one my dog chewed up. I got another one.
Dog ate your homework, huh? Okay.
It is who published this? Who is the publisher?
Penguin.
Hackett published Plato, 5 dialogues, Euthyphro, Apology, Crito, Meno, and Phaedo. One of them.
I would say Fido was hungry for it, if you know what I'm saying.
You made me. Well, I'm gonna blame you. You made me forget what I was trying to say.
About gratitude and how it's transmissible.
Oh, okay, I got it now. I haven't said it, so I keep forgetting. Okay, and one of them, I think it's Meno. It's definitely Meno. It's about recognition, learning.
Recognizing others.
Socrates is talking to, I think, Meno.
Mm-hmm.
Like Meno's servant or a little servant boy or whatever.
Because Plato, as you should know, is Socrates' apprentice.
Yeah. So Socrates is talking to whoever, and they're talking about learning. And Plato or Socrates' theory, I don't agree with it. But it's very interesting. And sometimes you're like, I feel that way. Give me the layman's etymology. Yeah, etymology, not entomology. That's bugs. Etymology of recognize.
To recog is to remember.
So do again.
Okay.
Cognize, think of, right?
There we go.
So Socrates' theory is that the knowledge is all there. We just have to recognize, to recognize, to realize, to rethink it. So sometimes you hear something and you're like, I knew that.
Right.
I've never had that thought I've never considered this before. I knew that. That's the recognizing and
colonizer.
Sorry,
I'm just joking. Recolonizer. Sorry.
You cognizer. But I think you can. I think you can make the case. You recognize what was cognized by God before.
I mean, that's one way to say we stand on the shoulders of giants, and that's also
not.
I don't necessarily agree with that because I agree with you that I don't agree with it because it's like what I said before. A human can discern. You can discern something based on your, not necessarily of your experience, but just general wisdom or common sense and say, that sounds true. That rings true. Now, I've done no investigation. I've done no any kind of other introspection about it, but you can make a snap judgment of something and say,
the intuition, yeah.
the intuition, that sounds right. My gut, that sounds right.
But that thing where like sometimes you say that sounds right, and you're like, how, like,
You're
you're
like,
like,
oh, what?
yes, how was that right?
Where does that even come from?
Yeah. But sometimes you're like, that sounds right, but that's wrong, right? So maybe
I can go that way.
maybe a grace from God is we recognize something he's already thought up.
Well, yeah, because he's thought of everything.
Everything knowable is in God. I think that's sound.
That's a really good. That's such a really good.
Amateur philosopher.
It's a really good, concise way to put that. Is anything you can think of has already been thought of by God, but all the things that are good are what God is.
Yeah. So sometimes I to bring it to a more, I don't think we've addressed the problem of evil at all, but it's kind of,
We're getting there.
I don't think it's interesting.
We're kind of defining the penumbra, right? We're walking around it.
But
honestly, I think we defeated it almost immediately by saying that, it's not a proving a negative, it's proving a positive. It's not the burden of proof is not on me to prove that God exists because evil exists. The fact that evil exists proves that good itself exists as the foundation.
Well, I think the quick apologetic answer is evil doesn't exist. Evil is merely the
Misunderstood
or the absence of good, and God is good, but you can't
make it like it's darkness and light. Darkness and light is as oversimplified allegory because you can't have one without the other. You can't realize darkness without light, and you can't realize light without darkness. So they're inextricable. What I'm saying is evil exists because good existed first.
I think I would go with the line that evil is merely the deprivation of the good. Like evil is not its own thing; it's just the absence of something of the good.
Well, it can't be because it also masquerades itself as good. It has an agenda. It's not like a theory or a theorem. It's not a scientific equation. It's not math. It's not like trying to balance an equation. Evil is masquerading itself as good because it wants you to accept it instead of good. By the way, I'm riffing this, and I'm giving the caveat. I'm just riffing here, but it would seem that good was first, evil came second, and every single aspect of evil lends itself to that interpretation.
So, the evil one, right? Satan, the devil,
yeah,
Lucifer. What other names are there?
Beelzebub. The fallen one. I mean, we're all fallen ones, but
so I think not only am I not a philosopher, I'm not an
yeah, you are. So am I.
I'm not an angelologist either. I think Aquinas's theory was angels' wills were, I always say the word perfect, but maybe total or final, or as in
infallible,
not infallible,
or unchallenged.
No, perfect in the sense that they don't change. Like final maybe is right. They made an act of will and they're going with it, right?
Invincible, invulnerable.
Invincible might be a good word. I don't know. But so in that one instantaneous act of the will, Satan rejected the good. So since he rejected the good, he doesn't have the good, right? He has no.
Right. Because out of spite, he decided, oh, you think you're more beautiful than I am?
So
Oh,
his
okay.
evilness comes from his rejection of the good, his absence of the good.
He's like, I'm gonna do exactly the opposite of what you do. And like I know I keep saying it over and over, but the opposite of good's not appealing. The opposite of light is darkness. It's not appealing. So
This is
the trick that he
yeah.
tries to play is to say, no. That darkness you see is actually light.
So
That
angels aren't all knowledgeable, I don't think. No,
me
they're not.
neither.
They,
They're servants.
they can't be.
They
Yeah,
can't be.
they're lower than God.
They're servile, and
So
God is liberal.
even though even though Satan, he rejects the good, he's going after a perceived good, but it's still evil because it's the absence of the good.
Yeah, it's that extreme individualism that we were talking about.
That's one way to look at it, because he's
like, I'm the one. It's like God is he who is I am. Well, what about me? What about me after that?
So Dante's Inferno is not.
I'm glad you brought up Dante. Fuck
not
yeah.
the Catechism of the Catholic Church.
I know.
It's not dogmatic definitions for any denomination.
But it rings true, bro. It rings true.
But it's very poetic, and poetry is true.
I believe that.
Very humbling podcast you have here. I haven't read all of the Inferno either. I've listened to a lot of it.
Me too. Like I said, I've listened to parts of it. Like I know that. Let's put it this way. I have a vague idea of how it works. I understand that in its entirety, it's a masterpiece.
Just yeah.
But to know that this at the ninth circle of hell, at the bottom of hell,
we all know
it's frozen. Why is it frozen? It's people that have betrayers.
But
right?
Yeah, but the next level, right? It's Satan.
Mm-hmm.
And is he burning? Is he hot?
Of course not.
No, he's frozen.
Yeah, frozen. Because he betrayed God.
Yeah. And what are the other? Who are the other three faces he has?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Judas.
Okay.
Brutus. And
well, I don't know it as well as you did because I don't know Brutus. Holy fuck.
Brutus betrayed Caesar.
Oh, Brutus. Thank you.
So
I think you said Rudis. I'm like, who the fuck is Rudis?
I'm gonna Google this real quick.
Et tu Rudis.
Et tu.
Do you think that I mean, obviously Brutus was real, but do you think that there is a such thing as like reincarnation, or do you think it's just like echoes of the same thing happening in reality?
Hold on. Oh, Gausius Cassius Longius, was he the servant of Brutus?
Cassius. That sounds Shakespearean, dude.
Yeah, Cassius was the brother-in-law of Bruto.
There we go.
Sorry. I'm sorry. What was your question? I was Googling.
I said, do you think that like Brutus and Judas, do you believe in reincarnation, or do you think that it's more like just echoes in time and in ideology?
Like they will be reincarnated?
Like no, like they rhyme. I obviously you don't believe in reincarnation.
Oh,
no serious
Judas. That's
Brutus. Like no serious person believes that they're the same person. But what I'm saying is, do you think that the echo in history is coincidental, or do you think that it's purposeful?
Yes, like why do their names sound very similar?
Not just similar, but they did the exact same fucking thing.
Yeah. I mean, God's a poet. He has to be.
Yes, you said it. You said what I have firmly thought and believed.
That
God is a poet. It's about alliteration. It's about rhyming. It's about it's about timing and structure.
Mm-hmm. I think GK. Well, I know it's a GK Chesterton quote, but I think it goes like this. Because he started life kind of like universalist was how he was raised, but he was like basically an atheist. Then he joined the Anglican Church,
So he's like a materialist, naturalist.
but then he became Catholic. But he was a writer. He's a well-known writer. And someone asked him like, "Why did you become Catholic?" And he goes, "There's 1,000 reasons I'm Catholic, but the main one is because it's true." But if reading Chesterton, you see that one of the other 1,000 reasons, one of the other 999 reasons, is because God's a poet. Like, if you see God as a poet, so many other things just like
why do you think history rhymes?
exactly right. Yeah.
If we're being philosophical and poetic about stuff, like I said, I'm very poetic about in the way that I speak, in the way that I choose allegory. I'm always alliterative and trying to find a rhyme.
You could take each like instance of like, why does history rhyme, and you could give it another explanation. But when you have, why does history rhyme? Why do I don't even know what else to say? Maybe why do Judas and Brutus sort of rhyme? But then why does this thing keep happening?
Why do we have deja vu?
Why do we have deja vu? Why do these two events in history seem kind of similar? Why do these other two or three events in history seem kind of similar? And why do these events in history seem kind of similar? It's like each individual case you could make like a rational, naturalistic explanation. But it keeps happening over and over again. And it's like you could either ignore it, you could say, okay, like, yeah, coincidence. But coincidence is just I don't know. I don't like the word coincidence.
I think it's a cop out. I would say, how would you explain then? Okay, here we go. Let's round it out.
Providence.
Yeah. My question to you is, if we're gonna round it out and we're gonna like cap it off, how would you say? Okay, we agree that God's a poet. We agree that things rhyme. Why? What would you say is the purpose of such a thing?
Of God being a poet?
Yeah.
Well,
is it because humans ourselves are we are adept to poetry, like we get it, or do we only derive that because God himself is a poet and we recognize it? I mean, we're in the image of God. Does that necessarily mean that we're going to understand the language of God all the time? Maybe not. But do you think that signs come? Do you think signs come because he's like, I mean, and to further that, is that why people say God has a sense of humor?
Yeah, because he's a poet. Yeah, that's why they have it. That's why they say he has a sense of humor.
He has a sense of humor.
I would say the fact that God is a poet comes from the fact that you can think of,
like, if you were going to tell somebody that didn't believe in God, like, oh, you think all coincidences are the same, and they go, no. You're like, okay. Well, if I could expose you to these 17,000 coincidences, would you then believe in God?
I think that would be either the truth or the beauty, because, well, how's the saying go? Once is a anomaly.
Yeah, 3 times is a pattern, right? 2 times is a coincidence. 3 times is a pattern.
Yeah, right. You kind of get to a pattern eventually. I guess that would be truth or beauty that you bring these two disparate things together in this cacophony of life, of music.
I would call that beauty, because
Yeah.
beauty doesn't have to be true, but it just has to ring true. So when you say two disparate things that come together, you could say, "Oh, that's beautiful," and it teaches me something that is not true. But now that I know that, I can now further know what truth is.
I think the more beautiful something is, the closer it gets.
The truer it is. Yes. Oh, I completely agree. I completely agree.
And kind of miss the mark a little bit.
Say that one more time, because I cut off my headphones.
You can kind of misinterpret it and miss the mark a little bit, but I think truth, because truth is good, right?
Yeah, and that's like the nugget that we're chasing here with going all the way back to leisure, is because it's good. Okay, well, let's chase that nugget of good. Is it beautiful? Yes. Is it true? Yes. And then to what degree of any of those things is good? It's like, okay, well, if we want to spin off each one of those things and then work it back to good, we can. But to say something that's beautiful inherently is good, no, not necessarily, because something grotesque can be beautiful.
I think you can mistake something as beautiful, something grotesque as beautiful, or you can see the beauty that is present in something that is otherwise grotesque.
That's what I mean to say.
But the more true something is, the more good it is.
The more good it is, and the more beautiful. So true beauty, like on a spectrum of beautiful, right? Like you could see. It sounds hacky, but like it's like you could see the beauty in a car crash, right? Okay, but it's not beautiful. It's not, and it's not surely not good.
Yeah.
But you can see, I take your meaning. You can mistake something for beauty in the absence of good and in the absence of truth. Now, a car crash could be misconstrued as beautiful, but it's true.
Well,
it's happening.
Okay, let's try to.
I'm proving your criticism. I'm proving your criticism by talking it out. So truth, beauty, and good.
But for others, like, how could a car crash be beautiful? Because
I don't even have an answer for that. I just use it as an example to try to like talk my way through it. And it turns out, I mean, it can be beautiful, like geometrically, or
I think the beauty would be in that
they all survived.
We've never seen this particular car crash before.
Okay, it's uniqueness,
novelty. Maybe that's where the beauty comes in.
Novelty. I love that you brought that perfect word in, novelty. Perfect word.
Maybe that's where the beauty lies. And it's like the car crash as a whole, step back from it, not beautiful.
Right.
That
through the lens of novelty, it can be misconstrued as beautiful because it's neither good nor
of matter,
really true.
And context and coincidence or whatever else, whatever you want to throw into it, has never happened before. And it's just like, whoa, this is new, maybe beautiful. Maybe. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But maybe it's that. Maybe it's
well, that's how we see progress, right? Like, oh, it's new. It must be beautiful.
I think. Okay, so we're going to bring this back to the beginning here.
Hell yeah.
Liberalism is a Christian heresy. Think about progressivism.
Like Gnosticism?
Towards.
It's like a Gnostic thing, or what?
You're progressing towards something, right?
Right.
Whether it's well-defined or not, whatever. But
The only argument I'd see that somebody would like sophomorically bring against you would be like, what if they're progressing towards Christ? It's like, okay, well, bitch. I mean,
Okay, so this is where
you think I would be able to tell?
because what are we supposed to do on Earth?
We're supposed to live.
We'll live by building the kingdom of God, right? We're supposed to progress towards the kingdom of God.
To aspire.
But when you lose that of God,
Progress is a lie. Then I gotta say that out loud. I gotta say progress is a lie because you cannot. Because progress implies the ability to attain, and you can never attain godliness. So progress is a lie because you can never actually attain it.
in
The ends of progress is unattainable.
yes, we will never be God, but we can become more and more Christ-like.
They're like, they're like, we can become as gods. Yeah, that's just as good, right? And it's like that's the lie. That's like the Scientology lie. It's like if you told everybody about Xenu on day one, they'd be like, nah. But if you told them on day like 850, and you're like, yeah, Xenu, and they're like, I'm this far along. Let's go with Xenu.
We're supposed to become like Christ.
Christ. The sad reality is we can't.
Well,
The sad reality is we will fail. That doesn't mean
we can't. Okay,
we will fall short. We will fall short. Let's put it that way.
I would definitely agree to. We can't do it on our own accord. We can do it by the grace of God.
Okay,
do it on our own accord.
By ourselves, we fall short regardless.
But we're supposed to become like Christ, so like God. So could society and our culture progress to where we are all collectively, I keep hitting my mic, I shouldn't do that. We're all collectively becoming more like Christ. Yes, that's true progress.
Yeah, but we'll never
progress
see it.
For the sake of progress or for a lesser good. Like you get a mixed message from quote unquote progressives because they either give you progressive for a lesser good, or when they're trying to, it's like one politician could say to you or to say to a certain group, we want progress for this good, but then this lesser good, but then they turn around and to make it appealable to a more general audience, they say progress for progress sake.
For the sake of it.
And it's like the lesser good, does it get you closer? Maybe. If ceteris paribus, all else equal, attaining that good more gets you closer to Christ.
Not if it's one step forward and two steps back.
Yeah, that's why I said so ceteris paribus is all else equal. All else equal.
All things being equal.
If your only movement, if your only potentiality turning into actuality is attaining that good, yes, you become more Christ-like. But in practice, in reality,
will you ever be able to get any other progress out of that?
So optimistically, you move towards that good at the expense of other goods.
Exactly.
Probably realistically, you move nowhere near that good. You do not move towards that good, and you move further away from other goods.
That's more realistic, yeah.
That's more realistic. Optimistically, you make little progress in this one little subsection. Realistically, you regress, and that's what that's progress for progress sake. That's what that is.
I think the problem with evil is that you think it's a problem. It's not. It's easy. Especially after reading this, I'm like even more. I was all in before, but now I'm like all in, double down, like wearing sunglasses with a fucking sponsor on my shirt, pushing all in, being like, suck it. I don't even give a shit what your opinion is. Like, I'm gonna win this poker hand no matter what. Like, that's how I feel.
Tell you, from reading this, I've heard other people talk about this. We talked about Father Scalia.
Mhm.
I've heard that talk before. It didn't resonate with me then. After reading this resonated with me. Hearing his talk again resonated with me, and
Because you actually understood.
I have a better understanding. Yes, and
Ah,
so that's the problem with
what,
a
academia?
argument with education is getting that person to an understanding.
Oh, that's why I dropped out. That's why I dropped out of college. I was taking Homeland Security and Emergency Management, and like what, a year and a half, 2 years in, they start telling me that the directions that my papers are taking are not kosher, not in line with a certain accepted narrative.
It's a this is a fine line to walk, because education tells you what is right,
Mm-hmm.
but that okay, I'm gonna education tells you in quotes what is right,
Mm-hmm.
but that in quotes what is right could be wrong, and if that in quotes what is right is wrong, you're not being educated.
That's how I felt.
Yeah, and it's like, so I went to junior college like 5 times, okay?
Brag.
And still don't have associates, but then I got on
Me neither.
I so okay, after I say this, let's talk about, 'cause I saw on the Facebook page blue collar philosopher. I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to talk about that, but let me say
Good.
this first. And then I started Western Governors University. Online
Yeah.
college. If you want a skill to work, great option, maybe for IT at least, because it says, hey, do this, get this cert, do this, get this cert, so on and so forth. Maybe for the education, the nursing, I don't know. I can't comment on those, but like IT was
very veteran friendly too.
yeah. Oh, I I filled some stuff online, had a few phone conversations. It was like, you're a student now. It's like, oh, okay. And so I'm not disparaging WGU. I just want to make that clear. But it's kind of like you are learning. This is that practical knowledge for that. Let's bring it back. Servile arts, right? This is the practical knowledge for the servile arts. It's like, if that's what I wanted, cool. And it is kind of what I wanted, but I couldn't do it because it was like that this isn't an education. This is a training.
Yeah.
I'm the old timers, if they hear this, will say, "Oh, they'll mumble to themselves and whatnot." I run CNC mills, so you could say I'm a machinist, right?
Oh.
The knowledge that I've gained to run these machines and from running the machines is totally practical.
Mm-hmm.
And I say totally, I mean 99.9%, because you can take that and apply it to other things. But the point of an education isn't that practical knowledge. That's the point of training. So I've gotten training in running CNC mills. I don't have an education in running CNC mills. And when I was doing WGU, again, this isn't against them. this is against the state of education.
I mean,
I
also fuck them, but okay.
wasn't getting an education in information technology. I was getting training in information.
Training in a career. You're not getting education in how to think about IT.
When I got my comp TIA A+ certification, that wasn't an education, that was training in how to diagnose information technology problems.
Brag.
Okay. Literally, okay. Just kind of humble myself a little bit. It was memorized facts, okay? Like I don't even remember them. This number mega transfers equals this number megahertz and blah blah blah. It's jargon. It's all jargon and it's all training. If you're dealing with jargon, you're not dealing with principles.
There's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing with technical training. Like,
And okay,
there's servile work that needs to be done, and there is servile training that needs to be applied.
So I wanted to say this earlier. I don't think I ever said it. Joseph Pieper and Leisure, the basis of culture, does not in any way denigrate work. Like,
not at all. As a matter of fact, you could do work that is leisure, and I don't think we ever really dipped into that. Like, there's guys that I heard an example of this is sculptors that were like meant to do the ceiling in some chapel somewhere in Spain, like Spain, Italy, whatever the fuck. They made statues that you could only see if you were up there, and they said that's for God. Like, you could never see it from the floor.
Well, his point is that work is necessary. We don't live to work; we work to live. If you want to live life, if you want to access the truth, you have to work.
We have to work, but also some forms of work can be liberal. They can be meditation. They can be leisure.
There's a I don't know how I want to explain this, but a goal or we'll say a goal, a possible goal. Well, I'll qualify with possible. Of the Christian life is to pray without ceasing, right? Like, how do I do that? I can't.
Without ceasing?
Yeah, right? It sounds wow, right?
That sounds crazy.
Okay. So let me explain the Rosary for anyone who doesn't know.
Explain it to me because I don't know.
Okay. So, yeah, you're repeating the same prayers, the same verbal prayers over and over again. But the point of saying the same thing over and over, it's
not memorization.
It's not in vain. I'm gonna say that it's not in vain
because it's not in vain. It's for like actualization.
Don't pray in vain, right? Don't pray in vain. It's not in vain. It's you're saying these prayers. On one hand, yeah, you're meaning to ask for the intercession of Mary, but on the other hand, you're meditating on events in the life of Christ, right?
Ooh. So
if you can say a Hail Mary while you meditate on the resurrection of Christ, what stops you from saying any prayer while you do servile work?
Nothing.
Nothing stops you, right?
You could literally just be praying all the time.
Yeah. So the Eastern, I guess the Eastern practice puts it more literally on the praying of, like, it's called the Jesus prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, a sinner, is one way to say it. And you could just say that over and over again while you're doing whatever. I could also do it like as you're working, as you're listening to a podcast, or as you're doing whatever, just like at some point you don't have to engage your mind in your work, right? Like,
Yeah, you have autopilot moments.
yeah, and on those autopilot moments, saying, "Lord, let me do this for your glory," over and over again, always reminding yourself.
Let me sell this 5-inch Dutch lap siding in your glory, God. I know it sounds funny. It's funny.
Yeah.
I have a comedic bone in my body. I enjoy that. That does sound funny to me, and I think detractors would latch onto that in order to invalidate it. But I'm only finding the humor in it because I believe it, and I would be like,
See,
I think it is fun.
sometimes when I come across something true, and it's just like I can either cry or laugh right now.
Exactly. Like it's dually serious and also hilarious.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, dear Lord Jesus, thank you for keeping all of these guys safe so they could come here and yell at me about how I did my job wrong.
Can I tell you something that happened recently?
Oh, please do.
So I was on a camp out with a bunch of other like Catholic men.
I thought
And
you were gonna say Boy Scouts, and I was like, figures.
wow, okay. This isn't one of those true laughing. This is one of those I can't believe you just said that laughing.
Nah, it's just funny. Hey, I like I said, I'm almost Catholic, and I'm just
Well,
taking
you
my joke.
know why I can laugh at it? Because even if that's true, I know it's not the truth.
You're right, 100%.
But so I'm on this camp out with a bunch of other Catholic men, and well, I guess no one knows this. Maybe not even, you don't even know this.
I don't know it.
In a while, I'm sorry. We should
Eh,
we should talk more.
we should offline, even offline. Just do this and just talk.
So I have a daughter, 6 years old. I'm not married, right? And you might were you at a baby shower?
I was not. I couldn't make it.
Sorry. Oh, but you knew about it, right?
I did.
Okay.
I was invited. I appreciate it.
Okay. So I have a child. I'm not married, right? And so I
Sinner.
go to camp out. How are you? So I go to camp out with a bunch of other Catholic men, right? And the first night I'm there, I get there about 5:00, 5:30, maybe 6. And a couple beers, I'm kind of loosened up, whatever, just chatting. Next morning, sober completely. And I'm talking to someone, and whatever the question was, it was like, yeah, I got a daughter. No, I'm not married. And it was like, oh, well, we're all out here trying. And it was like, oh, yeah, that's right. None of us are Christ. None of us are God. None of us are perfect. We're all here trying. I'm going to be honest. I forgot where I was going with this story.
There's nothing. I mean, I honestly, I don't think there's anything wrong with forgetting where you were going. I think that's actually a really good segue. It'd be like as a father, you're having a moment with other men who happen to actually be in the same faith as you, which is like actually pretty amazing. And like, yeah, we're all trying. It's like, yeah, that a very good point, astute observationist. And we all are trying. But it's not the end all be all. It's not the sin that catches you forever, right? Like your unmarriedness. Or it's like, and to contrast that, like, let me put this to a different way. Like, I'm married, but I'm unchildless. I'm childless. I'm unable to have children. So it's like, which one's the greater sin?
Well, I think I know why. And I don't know how public you are about it, but it's like that to everybody else isn't out of the ordinary, and nothing seems okay. So we're talking about perception,
Right?
now, not
Not like truth or reality.
being, not the truth, right?
Right.
Not reality, not truth or reality. but there's the perception, at least, is there's nothing wrong with that.
With not being able to have kids.
Yeah, or okay, not having them, not being able is like an explanation.
Yeah.
But having them is a state of being.
What is the state of being of which
Yeah,
an explanation is warranted?
yeah, and at least
Is that a Catholic thing or?
so. I think. Well, no. I'm trying to separate the perception from the reality, right? Is because I think I know the reality. We can talk about this later.
No, the reality is not that I'm infertile. The reality is that my wife is, because she can't.
Yeah.
Because she's had she's had a medically necessary hysterectomy. So it's like
yeah.
we were never able really to have kids at any point.
Yeah. Okay, I knew that. And so someone who didn't know you, but like how long you've been married for a long time, at least 8 years, right?
11 or 12.
Or 12. Yeah. Let's say they knew that and you had no kids. Someone who couldn't mind their own business might think, oh, something's wrong.
I get that. No, it's an okay, leap to make.
Yeah, but the actual truth is nothing is, y'all aren't acting wrongly. And so there's nothing wrong, really.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I don't pull out, so I'm still trying. Regardless.
Now, someone who's struggling with, like, let's say, what sin would that be? Like judging someone else. Be pride. Someone who's struggling with like pride or
jealousy.
Yeah, envy, maybe. Yeah,
envy.
That, but they might say, "You don't have kids. You're doing wrong."
It's because I'm envious. I mean, you know what?
Yeah, they might.
If anything,
wish they didn't. And yeah, they're envious of not having kids.
I think there's an accusation to be made, and I could probably give credence to it a little bit, that I'm envious of. Ooh, man, I'm starting to like recount some of my behavior. Like my neighbor is about to have a baby, and I keep every time I see her, I'm like, as soon as that baby's healthy, let me hold it.
You wanna know what happens to me?
It's like I'm envious that she's having a baby. I'm not.
You know what happens to me? I go to mass, and I sit there, and I see these families, like man and wife and kids, and it's just like, well, when she's with me, it's just like, oh, I've got 2/3 of that equation. And when she's with her mom, it's like I've got 1/3 of that equation. Yeah, struggle, but it's like I'm not willing that right now. I'm not doing anything currently. So like the sins I've done, I've confessed, and it's like, well, besides the envy I feel at that moment, maybe I need to confess that. But
the envy of what?
Of not having that complete family, not having that, yeah. It's like
it goes beyond regret. It's you're envious that you were unable to put that together. It's not that you regret it because it's not something that's like gone and it'll never happen. It's something that you envy that won't happen.
You know what envy is? Maybe one of, if not the opposite of.
What?
Gratitude.
Oh shit, that's a good one. I was gonna say pride, but that's also a bad one.
It's
the queen. It's the queen of all sin. Pride.
What you have, and seeing what someone else has, not being thankful,
not being grateful. You're envious. You're
You say
ungrateful.
it's not good enough. What they have is better, and I want that.
I like how I have to do the childish, like, not me, but you personification of every single thing.
Oh,
Every virtue and vice, I'm like, vice, virtue, vice, virtue.
the kid forces you to grow up. Like,
Doesn't it? It forces you to be like, hey, dummy, I learned that shit already, and that shit is this. And also, don't tell your mom.
I mean, I was particularly obstinate. I am particularly obstinate.
I think at least like 17% of parenting as a father is saying, don't tell your mom.
I've avoided that. It's like,
Oh, and by the way, this is completely informed by my
own it. Yeah.
terrible childhood where my father, um, my father came upon me while I had found a kilo of cocaine and ripped it open, and then like berated me, yelled at me, told me to stop, don't fucking move, and then vacuumed it up and put it back in saran wrap.
Oh.
And then in order to get me to not tell my mom, bribed me with ice cream. I was like, yeah, we don't need to tell your mommy about today. And I was like, yeah, you're right. We don't need to tell my mommy about today. You're totally right. I completely agree with you. Everything you've just said it's making sense. It's clicking with me.
Anytime someone says, don't tell this to someone else,
I want to.
that's when you need to tell it to someone else.
Right? Because it's inherently gossip. It has to be. What's even funnier is I'm going to do another anecdotal proof.
If someone is telling you to hide something,
right. It's probably wrong.
It's either they're implicating you in something that you shouldn't be doing, or they shouldn't be doing either.
Right.
You need to get yourself out of it by like, hey, I'm implicated in this way, and saying like, oh, I'm implicated in this by being told not to tell you. I'm telling you, so I'm not actually implicated because I'm admitting it.
It's like if the truth was so bad, you would just let it out. Like it's like if you. Ooh, I had an example. I had a really good example. It's like if you. Oh man. If the truth was so bad, you wouldn't care if everybody heard it. Basically, but I was gonna say something to the effect of like, if something was true, you wouldn't give a shit who fucking said it. Basically.
Yeah, you would. So this is something I struggle with: is you say the truth no matter what. If you say the truth and someone reacts negatively, that's not on you. That's the lesson I need to learn. Is that like I can speak the truth, and if someone doesn't like it, that's not a reflection on me. That's a reflection on them.
On their perception of the truth.
Because if I say the truth and they don't like it, that means they don't like the truth.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at on the social media spectrum. Is I'll say the truth. They reject me, and then I go, oh well, you're gonna let me back on in
now
19 more days.
There is the argument where like maybe
if I was truly despicable, you would just ban me for life. But no.
Yeah.
You're gonna put me in some sort of pseudo timeout.
Now
instead,
there is the argument of like maybe now, and maybe this way is not the way to say the truth. But there comes a time where like you say the truth, consequences be damned, because you need to say the truth.
And that's how I am at the beginning stages, where it's like there's prudence, and I'm like, caution to the wind, bitch. I don't give a fuck. Prudence, get thee behind me. I'm just gonna fucking say it.
Yeah, you still need to be prudent, but
okay. Oh, my bad.
Oh yeah. Well, I think the easier vice to fall into is what would be the
easiest vice to fall into?
opposite of imprudent?
Impatient, greedy.
Like
Not able to wait for things. Not able to defer gratification. So
patient touches what
greed.
I'm
I'd say greed.
maybe
Because you want it now.
yeah, that's kind of situationally greed.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah.
Well, I'm trying to refine it on the go as well. So,
but yeah. uh, oh, it reminds me of a book I want to get. A book I want to buy is Prudence by Father Gregory Pine. He's a Dominican priest, and I'm sure he explains what the opposite of prudence is in that book.
Ooh. You know what I want to do? So we've been going for 2.5 hours now. And what I want to do is, before I forget, is tie in everything we've talked about so far about leisure, total work, servile, liberal, and give a real world example, and then like give salutation, and then take off back to the green room. So I'm also reading this other book called The Making of the Atomic Bomb by Richard Rhodes. It's out of print right now since 2012. It's this thick. It was last reprinted in 2012. It's ginormous. I'm only 4 chapters in. It's nothing. But
that's 4 chapters? That was like
this is 4 chapters. It's nothing.
That's like 50 pages, but
I'm not joking. That's 4 chapters. It's the pages are thin. But you want to talk about leisure? The first scientist they talk about, I can't remember his name. He's from Hungary, and he postulated the arrangement of the atom, and he did it through leisure. He would go on extraordinarily long walks, and he would just walk to think. He would walk the streets of Austria and be like, toodaloo, and then it came to him, and that's why he won a Nobel Prize, because this guy, and it's not the only example in the book of these extremely ambitious men who spend an exorbitant amount of their time awake and asleep trying for certain scientific goals. And the atomic bomb, by the way, comes way later. We're talking about like figuring out alpha waves, beta waves. We're talking about figuring out X-rays. We're talking about figuring out electrons, the shape of the atom. And it was leisure that brought about probably the nexus point, the origin of the atomic bomb. It came from leisure.
Yeah.
What's your response to that?
I really wish I would have told you to read the Philosophical Act too.
I probably should have.
Leisure. Okay. If you are worshiping God, maybe Bieber doesn't say this. Maybe he does. Maybe it's there. I didn't see it, but I'm throwing myself in there, and other people that I've learned from. I'm throwing everyone I've learned from in there, not me. If you're worshiping God, you are accepting reality. That's the Philosophical Act. Is receiving reality. He even says this in the essay Leisure, the Basis of Culture. You have to receive reality.
In order to receive reality, you have to accept your Lord and Savior.
Yes. You have to
reconcile with the fact that you were wrong, you believed in it this whole time, and it's real. And you have to You have to wrestle with that. You have to find a way to put yourself right with it. That's why I say getting right with God. It's like,
Mm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. By the way, getting right with God is not like a conversation. It's not an argument. It's not a debate. It's you coming to the realization that
Yeah.
yes, he exists.
Wrong.
Yes, he's your master, and yes, you need to accept him as your savior.
Yeah. And leisure, it
Is the way to that in its simplest form.
it
It's not through struggle and it's not through pain. It's through introspection and free time. It's
the
it's it's through ease of life that you
the
could find
way
God.
the way these two essays tie together, it's almost like leisure is philosophy,
Hmm.
philosophy is leisure, but oh, so he brings up the fact that the Greeks have a word for leisure and for unleisure, not for
Yeah.
work, but for unleisure, right?
Onward.
So you
I don't remember what it is either, but I think I heard this lecture.
by worshiping God, you realize what is true.
Hmm.
But to do that, it's like the leisure allows you to philosophize. Everybody, oh, I know you wanted to sign off, but we have to go on this blue collar philosophy side
Yes.
after this. Okay. Um, leisure allows you to philosophize, and philosophy. Oh, let's break it down. Philosophia, philo, the love of, like
Hmm.
philia, brotherly love, philo, love of, Sophia, wisdom. It's the love of wisdom. And if you're wise, who is the most wise? God, right?
God. You're trying to achieve the wisdom of God.
So in doing philosophy, in being leisurely, right? Like leisure isn't necessarily easy, but it's
Well, yeah, it's not. It's not necessarily easy, but the act of doing philosophy is leisurely in its
not
core.
only is leisure not easy, but it's
Mhm.
active.
Yeah,
Leisure and not leisure, not laziness. I'm sure the Greeks had a word for laziness or loafing, but it's leisure and not leisure. You have to work your Pieper says this, you have to work your leisure. Um, not work in the sense of I'm doing this to survive so I can have leisure, but work
yeah,
as it takes effort.
yeah.
It takes
Survival is survival, and liberal is spiritual.
yeah, it takes effort to have leisure, and that I'm gonna do the cheap way. Having leisure informs your theology. If you have
Hmm.
a theology, you can have a philosophy, and then in your philosophy, you inform your leisure, right? You inform your theology through your philosophy, and then in your informed theology, you have better leisure. Like you grow towards God in leisure, and even if you're atheist, even if you don't believe in God, you grow towards whatever transcendent or what's the word? Not primal. Brute, whatever brute truth you have, you
Foundational.
go towards that. And that makes you live your life better. Is recursive the right word? Like you go from one to the other, back to the other, back to that other, back to the first one, back to the other.
I think that's vacillating.
It
Vacillation.
it's a what's the word? Whenever
Transporting.
there's a better way to put it.
Hmm.
It's kind of like feedback. Positive not reinforcement. Positive, positive feedback loop. There we go. Positive feedback loop. Like you have leisure, you philosophize. You have better leisure, you better philosophize. You have better leisure, and so on and so forth.
It's a positive feedback loop. Okay, that makes sense.
Growing closer to God, even if you don't believe in God.
I think that's the best part of all of this is when they say, I don't know, I don't believe in God. It's like, yeah, but if if you do this, you get closer to him. And they're like, yeah, but I don't believe in him. It's like, yeah, also that doesn't matter. Like also you still get to be godly.
Yeah, you
Even
still
if, even if you don't want to be, you still get to be godly.
Yeah.
Sorry. So sorry. Oh, you you get saved by accident. I'll take it.
So so that camping trip I went on, I mentioned earlier, it was at Clear Creek Abbey.
Ooh.
Clear Creek Abbey is outside of Holbert. I would say outside of Muskogee. Everyone knows
Okie from Muskogee.
Okie from Muskogee. They don't smoke weed or disparage their college deans or anything.
You know, or traffic kids, whatever.
I'll say outside of Muskogee, Oklahoma. But the people who started this abbey, this monastery abbey, in 1999, were monks who were monks in France, and they moved to France from America because they were students at a Kansas University in their Great Books program under the tutelage of John Senior.
Really?
John Senior. But apparently, he was so good, he convinced all these like atheists not only to become Christian, so not only become Catholic, Christian and Catholic, but everyone became monks, Benedictine monks.
Yikes.
France. And then in that monastery, that abbey, they were like, we want to go back to America and start another abbey. And that's where Clear Creek Abbey came from. So when I went up there, that was leisure. That was, honestly, I don't remember why I started saying this, but like that was leisure. That was, they have people like,
that makes sense.
Some monks work.
I definitely thought of monks when I was thinking of I was thinking of liberal art. When I was thinking about the liberal sort of work, it's like what is the progress of it? And almost all of every time I thought of monks, now I was like, those are the guys. Those are the ones like on that extreme side. They're like, no, it's the word of God, and that's what it says. So
the quote unquote motto, I don't know how they would explain it, but the motto of Benedictine monks, at least, is ora et labora, prayer and work. So you have like monks, and then you have choir monks. The choir monks are the ones that are like ordained priests. Their work is to do philosophy, do theology.
Okay.
Do contemplate. Contemplation is their job, right? But the other ones, the regular monks, I guess.
Losers.
No.
I'm just joking.
Is to work, ora. No, sorry. Labora, and to pray, ora. And like, so at least at this abbey, they have a particular rule where they don't speak unless it's like for work, or it's their time to like, talk to, like they have a time during the week where they can just like chat, right?
Which is garbage. Okay.
I walked by one. Like when I say I walked by one of these monks, his legs, all I see are legs sticking out of the hood of a truck.
Well, who'd he hit?
As I walk by, he just happens to like pull his body and his head out and look at me. He doesn't say anything. Did you know why?
Why?
Because he's supposed to pray and he's supposed to work. Ora et labora, right? That's Latin. Ora, pray, et and labora, work. So he kind of just looks at me and I keep going. He goes back to work. And it's just like that's the guy that he prays unceasingly. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe he's a terrible. Maybe he's not like hasn't made his final vows. He's kind of like been there a few months, a few weeks or something. And like his prayer is the hours, the liturgy of the hours. And at work, he's just like brooding whatever. But like the ideal is he's working, and because he recognizes his work as at the service of leisure, not only of himself, the choir, or himself when he's at the church, at the abbey, praying the hours, praying, we'll just say that, praying, or at mass. He's also working at the service of the choir monks who don't go out and do the hard labor. They still have work to do, but their work is at the service of God. And it's like at that point, it's not really work. It might be
it is, but
them subjectively.
I mean, it's worth it work with worth behind it.
But objectively, I think
you could objectively disqualify anything. You could also objectively include anything.
Well,
I would say that along the middle of the line is we objectively let them do work.
Yeah, and like if you ask that so there's the priest the monk working on the truck, right? Subjectively and objectively,
yeah,
he's working. You tell that monk who's the choir monk, the priest, he's a priest, and he's reading the Summa Theologica, however you want to pronounce it, by St. Thomas Aquinas, for those who don't know. Trying to write it like a doctoral thesis or something. Objectively, well, subjectively, that might be work to him. He might be laboring over that. He might be saying this is for this goal, and yada yada yada. But objectively, what's he doing? He's thinking about God. He's philosophizing.
Yep.
He's theologizing. Objectively, he's at leisure, even if he doesn't recognize it. I don't think.
I could agree with that.
This is me for everyone. And it's just like we can all be at leisure all the time, even though we're working.
We could. It's not a hard thing to obtain, really.
Oh, no, it's very hard.
Well, it doesn't seem hard.
So, I was talking to a priest yesterday about something I've been going through. And
it's because you have two dicks, isn't it?
I wasn't going to tell anyone, but no. But I was like, this and that, and like, yeah. He's like, well, what did he say? He's like, I brought up gratitude earlier, and this is why I brought up gratitude. He's like, gratitude is the answer to that. I was like, Father, you hear it 10 times, but the 11th time is when it finally clicks. He's like, yeah, I know. But it was like, I knew this. I thought it through, but it was just like that hearing it again and thinking through it one more time. I understand now.
You want me to be grateful for some bullshit, is what you're saying. I'm joking.
But yeah, I don't think you can avoid leisure, even if your gods aren't God. You can't avoid leisure.
It's a hard, yeah, exactly. It's a hard thing to dismiss.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. It's like, well,
Well, it's
the
either
only thing they would say is the real evil will be like, oh no. Uh, Leisure is actually when you are chilling out on TikTok and you do it enough to where then you get enough followers, and then after that, it's like, no. You're not being leisurely. You're actually working on
that,
behalf of something.
that not only does that work, well, okay, it could either be work or it can be work. No, hold on. It can either be vainglory, or it can be work and vainglory. And it's like one's only a little bit worse than the other, but they're both pretty bad.
And I keep waiting for them to come up with something that's like, "No, I'll be the white guy that gets the trash bag out of the ceiling. Y'all can just play whatever you want."
I don't know. I don't know that reference, but
Nah, I don't know. I'm just saying.
okay. So blue collar. This is the question I have. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm flipping
Please.
here. Why is it important that we, as blue collar workers,
Mhm.
care about philosophy?
Because to not care about philosophy is to put yourself in the position to be tricked by a false prophet. To be a blue collar philosopher means to be in the most vulnerable of positions, intellectually, obviously, and obviously is a stereotype, intellectually and economically, and still be able to stand up and say, yeah, I understand what you're doing and I'm not for it and I'm not going to do it, and also fuck you. Like, you need to be able to because there are so many more blue collar workers than there are white collar advantage uh, keepers. The blue collar philosopher can sit there and go, well, this might not necessarily 100% be akin to anything that I'm aware of, but I can see by the principles of this thing that I'm looking at that's wrong, and I don't like it. And if I don't like it, then I'm going to say no to it. And if I say no to it, I'm going to say no to it to everybody. And if everybody looks at me while I'm saying no and they say yes, then I'll say, well, you're evil. That's what it should be about. It should be about it, and I don't mean revolution in the Marxian sense. I mean revolution in the sense of like Aristotle, like to have something that will change something else. Like, be the person that makes a change. Be awake and aware enough of the things around you to make a change. And if anybody's aware of it, it's the blue collar people. They just don't voice their opinion enough because they're like, I don't want to be political. I don't want to get involved in politics. And it's like, you do everything you can to be involved in politics. You just don't want to end up on the wrong side of it. And if you're a farmer, an electrician, if you're a truck driver, you can't say, oh, I don't want to be involved in politics. It's like, yes, you do. You actually do. You want your interests to be propagated. What you're saying is, I don't want to advocate for them lest I be called whatever name. That's what
So
it really comes down to.
would you say that it's important as a blue collar worker like you and I that we not only care about but actively ponder or contemplate these questions, because that brings us closer to the truth? Or would you say that I'm going to give you a third option too?
Mm.
Um, Or would you say that we should wonder and ponder these questions for political gain?
Mm.
Or would you say that we shouldn't consider these because it's not our realm?
Not 2 and 3. I think number 2, political gain, comes regardless. As soon as you, as soon as you start to reckon yourself with the world, and as soon as you start to understand how that interaction is and where you
Mhm.
fall in there, you don't have to worry about political, because political comes with the territory. It's like either it's good for you, it's bad for you. That's how you vote. That's how you're supposed to vote. And increasingly, it's becoming more blurred as to what is for you and what's against you. They're like, Republicans vote against a bill to make diabetes medication cheaper. And it's like, yeah, because at the bottom of it, it says we should also spend $8 trillion on this other thing. It's like, the,
Before
the political part of it comes with it, and it's not even like, it's not inherent, and it's not even, I don't know, conscious. What I will say is, philosophically, you can't deny it. There's no, it's inextricable. I think we talked about this before, and I'm just kind of like finally coming to not a realization, but coming to a rationalization, saying it's philosophy is inextricable from God. It's inextricable. And even as a blue collar person, you can try to excuse certain things, and you can try to cover up certain things, but when it comes down to it, as a working man, most of them believe in God anyway. But it's inherent in their philosophy, because there's a foundation.
Did you say don't believe or do believe?
Do.
I would say I'm gonna push back on that point.
Okay, pushback, because I'm talking like regionally, and it's also a lot of opinion based in my area.
Explicitly, not implicitly, but explicitly, you're right. Implicitly, if it's not a disbelief in God, it's a misunderstanding of God.
I'm willing to accept that criticism. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For those that don't,
So
because I can't blanket, obviously, but for those that don't, I would be more generous to say it's a misunderstanding rather than a.
yeah. So what you were saying, it was you made a point about politics being informed.
Well, yeah, because being informed about politics is not necessarily the goal. It happens, but
Yeah,
also that God is foundational, but the political portion happens.
that's what I'm saying. Politics is informed by your theology, by your belief in God.
It's downstream from culture, as Andrew Breitbart said. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that I've heard it both ways. Politics is downstream from culture, and culture is downstream from politics.
Only the first part is true, and it's proved by even the people on the left saying, "Oh well, we have to embody the struggle, and we have to embody the riots, and we have to embody the
Politics,
progress, and blah blah blah." It's like,
not
because they're trying to influence their body politic by influencing the culture.
so politics is informed, and not the other way around.
100%.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I agree. Yeah. But that bringing it back to Pieper, you can't have a philosophy without a theology.
Yep,
You
I
can't
agree.
you can't have a policy without a philosophy. You can't have a philosophy without a theology, right?
100%. So what's the theology of conservatism?
Oh, we're really bringing it back. Okay. Like I said, I got to read these guys, but in practice today, at least, especially with the neocons, it's slow your boats, calm down. We'll get there, right? A true a true conservatism or a true alternative to conservatism, either way you want to put it, would be what's a fancy word for reversal?
The changing of the tide,
Reverse
reverse in polarity.
it. So I never understood why communists called conservatives reactionaries
Right,
until I
because
understood
they're reacting to our revolution.
only reacting to what the new fad of liberalism is. It's like, okay, reactionary makes sense.
Oh yeah, real reactionary to the evil that I'm doing to you.
You're reacting to the new thing, so you're reactionary. Let's
I
come.
bet
Let's
I bet anti-slavery people were reactionary to slavery.
well, slavery is a weird one, man. It's wrong. Yeah, that's not weird. It's not weird to say slavery is wrong.
You know, I'm using it as an example to say like the people today that they see as like the Underground Railroad, they were all reactionaries to the status quo of slavery.
In a way, yeah. Because the truth that should have been known before the quote unquote truth that slavery is okay was slavery is wrong.
But that's where the proof comes. That's where you should philosophically be able to look at these things and go, yeah. Wait, oh no, go back. Oh yeah, it was all no's the whole time because of this. Yeah, and then you're able to like trace it.
Well, so there's two problems with like argument. Is either you accept all the same principles, but your conclusions are different, or all your principles are different. And I think when it comes to slavery, the principle that we're all human beings, and the principle that if you have white skin, you're a human being. If not, you're not a human being. Those are the principles that war with each other.
I think it was more of a political argument for
Oh,
for property rights,
yeah.
and also the let's go ahead.
There could be other factors informing the conclusion that
Right. Okay. Yes. Because that's where I was going to go. That's what I was basically going. Was like the African slave model only made the most sense because of ease of identification. They're like, it was easy to say that person's slave, that person's not, because the color of skin that was actually like built into the sale of that person. Like, no. Oh, you're going to be in Virginia? Yeah, dude. I have a deal for you. Guess what? You're going to be able to eyeball these dudes from wherever the fuck they're at.
In this colony full of English settlers,
yeah, exactly.
You apart.
Where the snow falls in the winter is white as the virgin.
Yeah, like okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Duh. It was purely economic. It was purely servile in its inception. 100%.
Well,
servile. I'm being cheeky, but yeah.
Yeah. I understand your point, but I'd still push back on it and saying that if something is purely economic, there's an evil happening. But
yes, I know. I'm agreeing with you. It's pure. It was purely economic. It was 100. Slavery was purely economic. It had nothing to do with principle.
Have you heard of the integralist debate?
I have not.
So there are. I don't know if it's fair to call it integralist. We'll say post-liberal debate. But there are some post-liberals who are integralists. It's basically like the question is, how should secular and spiritual power be shared? And shared or split, or however you want to put it. And it's like some people want like a confessional state. Like Oof. I'm talking about post-Reformation France, where like I am the king of France and I want the Catholic faith to be the official faith. That's some people.
Yeah.
Some people want, we are the government of state, whatever it is. Officially, we believe Catholic faith. Here's how you should act that out. Now, that might sound the same, but there's a difference. But neither of them are liberal.
Mm.
We talk about liberalism? What is liberalism? I want to ask you, what is liberal?
Like modern liberalism is actually, it's just progressivism by a different name. To progress for the sake of progress.
How about liberalism is the belief that we can discover the truth in a neutral field. We can discover the truth by bringing our not neutral, our biased, maybe is the word, biased may be the word, but our not neutral beliefs to a neutral field, and through discourse, discover the truth.
I mean, okay. I mean, you can say that, but that's not what that word means. In the context of
In the American context,
everything American,
Yeah.
shit, everything American, that's not what that means. If anything, you're describing like conservative people.
And okay, so we go back to my point of conservatives are just liberals who put the brakes on.
Exactly, and that's why it's such a hard identity thing for me, because
So
I want to be a conservative, except I know what it means to be that, and there's a qualifier and or whatever the opposite of qualifier is, that I could say I want to be a conservative that does X.
okay,
I want to be a conservative that actually stops the train instead of yelling at it idly.
let's imagine I am your run of the mill, almost suburban, almost country conservative, and it's like, what do I believe? It's gonna be something along the line of almost libertarianism, but
Yeah.
probably not quite. Like, leave me alone, but still ban this and that, right?
Yeah, I get
And,
that.
and it's like, so there's
They've been enticed by libertarianism, and also they don't understand conservatism. So
well, I
I take that.
yeah. So I think your everyday conservative is conflicted.
Hmm.
You're intellectual and honest. Someone could be intellectual and trying to deceive themselves, but your honest intellectual conservative is either going to go the libertarian route or not consider themselves a conservative. They'll either say laissez-faire, let let be who is be.
I mean, then I guess I consider myself a conservative then, because I mean I'm with that.
They could say, I prefer someone who doesn't know me not to. I think the principle of if conservatives understood the principle of consolidarity,
Mhm.
what's the word? Is that it? Consolidarity. It would not only change conservatism as it is, I think it would also be a huge political wave, because it says, or consolidarity, yes, but also subsidiarity.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Subsidiarity says a deferential treatment to like the lowest body of government. So if it can and should be handled at the mayoral level, that's where we're going to do it at.
That's a fallacy, because everything can and should, and that's why the 17th Amendment was so huge to the progressives and the evil ones.
Okay,
Because they wanted to take something that was already voter based and pretend it wasn't, which is the electing of senators by popular vote. And then they said, "Oh well,"
I hate that amendment.
they're like, "Well, I mean, it's a good old boys club of the state representatives and blah 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 blah." You're like, "Oh, you mean the people that live in my neighborhood, the people that I'm close to, the people that I control via my vote, via my popular vote, and that would never cross me by voting in some charlatan as a senator? Yeah, those guys. Yeah, tell me again how they're good old boys."
I
Oh,
would the direct election of senators goes against subsidiarity.
it has to. We
Yeah,
already well. First of all, we already have a popular vote.
yeah,
We already have a popular vote system when it comes to House of Representatives.
mhm.
The stopgap to that populism,
States.
is to have our state representatives through our already populism vote in a senator, and there's a check and balance. The check and balance to that is if the senator fails, the state representative fails. If the state representative fails, he is going to be ousted immediately, and he doesn't want that. So he has to pick a good person
It's recognizing you as an individual or you as a part. Okay,
of a collective.
let's tie this back to family, right?
Yeah,
You have a family, and you have a group of families, which could be called a community,
community,
and you have a group of communities, which is a
constituency.
constituency, and you have a group of constituencies that's called a state, and you have a group of states. It's called a federal government, right?
The
This is
nation.
subsidiarity in action, and that's how we were set up in America originally.
Yeah, originally.
Now, okay, the admittance or recognition of our founding fathers. One Catholic signed the Declaration of Independence, but still, even though our founding fathers were influenced by the liberals of Locke and not Hume, but Hobbes, mostly Locke, and then Tocqueville. Tocqueville is Catholic, but was still influenced by liberals.
I would say the biggest problems can be attributed to the passage of the 17th, 18th, and 19th Amendments.
So 17th is direct election of senators. 18th is, you're gonna have to remind me. I'm not gonna feign
Prohibition.
No. Oh yeah, that's stupid.
19th.
Puritans are wrong just across the board.
What's the 19th one? Women get to vote.
You know, I don't agree. I don't disagree with that. But
I might be incorrect. I actually might be incorrect. I think 20th is prohibition. Women got the right to vote, and then we got prohibition. The two are not related, but they go in sequence. That was my fault. Sorry about that.
I'm about to fact check you.
Please do. Real time.
19th Amendment granted the women the right to vote.
What's the 18th?
18th. Prohibition.
Oh shit! I was right the first time.
18.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Well, shit.
18, I totally disagree with, because how are you going to govern yourself without fraternity? Now you can have fraternity.
Well, I think the funny part is they decided that a thing was illegal regardless of the consensus of the governed, and it led to the greatest fumble of national security and law enforcement ever. They were like, "Oh, it's going to create a black market. Who's going to control that black market? Oh, you mean mafia members? Damn, I didn't see that coming." It's like everybody but you saw that coming.
I put it to like banning beards. Like,
oh yeah, you're not out of a beard. Guess what? All all the coolest people are going to have them.
Yeah. I'm about to grow a beard right now. Like I didn't drink before, but I'm gonna drink now.
I am breaking out in a beard as we speak.
I'm pretty sure my shadows come on since the beginning.
You know, I do have to say I am immensely enjoying every part of this. But I'm actively falling asleep.
Is it 1 o'clock there?
It's something like that. And it is not from boredom. It is not from boredom. Oh, hold on. What time is it?
You can get me going.
It is midnight. But I will say I am not falling asleep from boredom. I'm falling asleep from
I understand.
from being actually tired. So if you rewatch this and you see me nodding off, I am listening. And if you notice, I do make a cogent answer to everything you asked. It's just I'm so tired, and I'm so glad that it went 3 hours. I'm like, that's an achievement in itself. First of all,
the longest one you've done?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to have done it, and also keeping up with all the ideas and getting challenged with new ones and trying to suss out what I believe. That's like the greatest thing ever. But I'm also in no state to continue.
You know what? I understand. I should have gone to bed over an hour ago, an hour 15 at least by now. And the only reason I'm still awake is because you got me going. I'm gonna.
Well, I will say once again, thank you, Tanner. Thank you so much for coming on. And I don't think it's going to be the last time. I'm probably going to have you on
anytime you want.
Probably multiple times.
On a Thursday or every other weekend.
There you go. I can do that easily. And I will say salutations to you, and have yourself a good night.
Yeah, you too. Take it easy, man.
Peace out.
Yeah.